creature of the night, not the most pleasant of sight. If alone, gazing to the darkness, I will be there representing blood's kiss. Creature of the night, don't mean to bring you fright. I'm a creature of the night, not the most pleasant of sight. If alone, gaze into the darkness, I will be there representing blood's kiss. All right. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Just a second here. Move it just a bit. So, just give it a second here and get some notifications.
Right. Shit.
What's wrong?
My foot was hitting the corner.
Okay.
It's throbbing a little bit, but I'll be alright. It's a matter of, now that it's elevated, it's the blood flow and all that fun shit.
Right. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Like I said, we probably won't go very long on this one. Yeah, we had quite an ordeal. We'll get into that. I'll just give a few more minutes here. I'll get going, and this is why we're running late. We'll kind of get into that also. And late, I kind of chuckle at it low key because this is the time, the early creatures of the night. The first few months, we were messing with time starts. It was originally around 11 each night, and then it's just the viewership was down even then. And it's funny because there's creatures of the night, you know, I thought, well, we'll have it late, almost as close to midnight. No, that didn't do So I moved it up an hour gradually with time to test it to see the demographics and the way the algorithm read and all that stuff. And it does seem like that's why 8 is kind of our sweet spot right now. Yeah.
And what's funny is that, remember that show I was telling you about, Legend of the Seeker?
Mm-hmm.
That was an 11 o'clock show. And I always had school the next day when it came on because it was on like Thursdays or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't always stay up to watch it, which sucked, but
Yeah.
I need to stop doing that.
What are you doing?
I moved it just slightly, but it kind of turned, so then my thing was hitting the
Oh, gotcha.
corner.
So, yeah. So, we had a change of plans suddenly. Originally, we were going to go to...
Hey, Zach.
Hey, Emma, bro. Originally, we were planning to go to visit, because she hadn't gone to a paranormal conference, paranormal show for ever before, really. Not in that same way. So, Parapsycon is this weekend at Mansfield Reformatory, where they shot Shawshank Redemption,
Which
Air Force One.
We did just watch because I had not seen it yet.
It was part of her homework. I was going to have her watch that movie first to learn about Andy Dufresne and the methods of escaping Shawshank, a.k.a. Mansfield Reformatory. And in preparation for this weekend, it was just going to be one of those crazy one-day...
Spur of the moment.
Yeah. Most of the time is going to be on the road, and actually divided in thirds. Probably half the time driving, or a third of the time driving, third of the time actually enjoying ourselves, third of the time then driving back. Because that's why I had contacts. I have a couple friends in Ohio and I had worked with one in the paranormal field before. She's exited the paranormal field years ago, but she still lives in Ohio, and I was going to see her because it was 2015 when I last visited her. And that was going to be our place to kind of visit, maybe get a couple hours of a quick power nap, and then head back to Illinois. Well, we had that all ready to go.
And then I went and fucked it up.
And then, well, somebody had a boo-boo.
A big boo-boo.
A pretty big boo-boo that required life flight. So, yay. So, no more scares, I say, you know. Don't need to keep me on my toes like that. I know you like keep things interesting. Damn.
That kept things a little too interesting for even me, so.
Yeah. So, literally, we just got back from me picking her up at the hospital. Now we'll backtrack. We'll do it kind of in chronological order now, and this is why we're starting later tonight. Back to like Zach in the chat knows, we used to do these after 10, closer to 11 when we first started, and we kind of inched it up hour by hour to fit when it seems like most people seem to tune in and they're not going to bed. Anyway, so that's the reason for our delay tonight. It's been a long 24 hours. I'm still on fumes.
36 hours.
I've had maybe 4 hours of sleep, if that. So that's part of why we'll probably not go so long tonight, and we won't do the gaming live stream on Twitch after this. That's probably going to be a tomorrow night thing. And it worked out that way. Jordan, who games with us, he understands. He actually was also saying that tonight wouldn't work out good for him anyway, naturally. So it didn't feel so bad. Emo Bro says, I wondered if you saw the village and the mansion from the sky in the helicopter. I once took one too to see Mount St. Helens.
Honestly, with how and I did take a little video of, like 7-second video of us flying down there, but with how it looked, you really couldn't tell the different houses and stuff. I very well could have, but they kind of pumped me full of pain meds, and so I was at the point of getting sleepy. And so I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention, and it took me a minute to even remember, hey, I wanted to get a slight video of being up here.
But she still had that vlogger mentality, so she's still recording her travels. She even took a damn picture of her wound when it was just fresh. She was out there still sitting in the grass.
It wasn't a very good one because you couldn't really see the damage. All you saw was where it sliced. But yeah, it was one of those moments where I knew nobody would really know what happened or really believe that I pulled this kind of stunt. So I wanted a picture of it so I could be like, look, this is what happened. But it didn't quite show the depth of the injury. Because even with the picture, it doesn't look like it's that bad.
Yeah, so it was kind of decided after the initial check on seeing what the situation was. It's like, okay, let's document this adventure. As it was just, it's one of those things, especially because I wasn't sure what she started doing. I was like, is she doing it because she's, some people in state of shock, they forget, or are they blackouts? So like, is she doing it in terms of documenting for herself because she's not going to remember this?
I hope to God in the future I don't remember this.
Or if it just purely just kind of show the do's and don'ts of proper lawnmower etiquette. I don't know. But we do have some footage, including for my end, and me waiting, it seemed like forever, in the hospital, and walking through the halls of the hospital pretty much alone, from the living sort. I was shut down too. I know, Zach, you probably wondered. It's like, spiritually I was shut down for this. It needed to.
Yeah.
It was the same kind of shutdown with Angela when that happened, and that vacuum suction of spirits. Just that was a whole different situation. Like, I felt that, and then it was just like dead to me. I just did not feel much because that's my own way of handling things. I kind of shut down. So in the hospitals, who likes them? I've yet to really meet anybody who's like, oh yeah, we're going to the hospital, yeah.
Now, granted, saying that this particular hospital I was at was actually a really good one, and the people were really nice. I didn't have any bitchy nurses or anything
Well,
like
in terms
that.
of reviews,
So-
seriously, yeah. I mean,
So,
the
yeah.
hospital's not a place you just want to
No,
be
it,
at.
it wasn't where I wanted to be. Obviously, I made sure that I came home tonight
Mhm.
rather than tomorrow morning. But at the same time, it was like I've been in worse hospitals.
Yeah, and we'll kind of go over that in chronological order now for Hospital 1 to Hospital 2, and we'll kind of go into that because, yeah, I have nothing bad to say about the Springfield one either. But, so, starting out, okay, so we have a rider mower, and that thing has been, it's either gone this wrong or something's gone, this has gone wrong or something with it. So, we've had the, it's funny because I call him Larry, the lawnmower guy, Larry the cable guy, you know, but his name's Larry, and he fixes up and sells used lawnmowers. I think he does it as a full-time thing now. I mean, he's a retirement age, but I don't assume, but it is his own business. Hey, Lupita. Sound Mind says, good evening, creatures. So we're just starting the story of the attack of the lawnmower. So we're just starting that. Anyway, so the reason our grass even got as long as it did was because the fact that I was going to start it about 3 days earlier. But it had a known carburetor issue that we were hoping that when Larry, the lawnmower guy, came out to fix it and kind of look at it in the driveway, that just a few adjustments and a loose valve thing he reconnected, it was good to go. He did leave saying that, oh, you need to make sure, you know, that it starts good because I will be back through town next week, which at the time that I did call him, it was already past that time that he was going to be through town. I think he was kind of telling me, he's like, if he had problems with it, because he kind of seemed like he forecasted I would have problems with it. Anyway, it wouldn't even turn over when I went to start it to mow. So then I called Larry, the lawnmower guy, up, and I said, this is not starting for me. I do have grass that needs mowed. It's almost crying and begging for me to mow it.
Not to mention your anxiety was crying and begging you to mow it.
Right. Once it starts to get too bushy, too tall, and especially if it's a mix of crabgrass with weeds and everything else, and it's not just it's not a blue ribbon prize winning yard. It just, my OCD goes in overdrive, and I'm just like, oh, God, it looks, we got to cut it all plush. We got to,
Got to make sure it's not too bushy.
Right. We got to make it look like someone lives here. It's not an abandoned mansion again, So, Larry, the lawnmower guy, day 1 went by, day 2 went by. It was day 3 he finally was able to fit it into his schedule, so he came out to pick it up. In the meantime, though, I was going to get a head start, and I recommended to her, I was like, well, why don't we use the push mower? And she said, well, I have used the push mower before.
No.
I'm used to the push mower.
Let me clarify. I suggested, because I was staying home from work that day, because my paycheck hadn't hit and I wasn't able to go and get my car fixed yet, I offered to go ahead and start the mowing. He didn't make the suggestion. I offered.
Okay, well, either way. But the push mower came up in topic, which hardly ever gets used. But it does make things handier to use it, because when you're with trees especially and stuff, it's easy to mow on the bigger mower, the rider lawnmower, because you have, the perimeter around the trees and stuff already cut with the push mower. So I could see why my parents, when I lived with them, they had me being the alternative boy pushing lawnmower out there, and I hated it, but it makes sense why that was there. Why they had me do it, because it does make it easier to mow, especially if it's not a zero radius mower, it's an old tractor style, so you're kind of go good.
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm just adjusting.
Austin powering it basically around, and it uses a lot more gas, and this old mower, 20 years old mower easily, it's just,
It's seen better days.
And it's kind of fun because at the end of them dropping it off, moments before what happened, they dropped it off, and then the old guy said, it's like, well, and reminder, we do have other mowers for sale. So I think he knew in frustration, and the fact that called them, Larry, the lawnmower guy, out at least once last year twice this year already. So it's like I'm becoming a first name basis with them. So they're probably just like, do you want a new mower? Newer, it's probably still used, but it's like how I do my cars. Like I've never had a new from zero odometer car before ever.
Neither have I.
So a new mower to me is still going to be used. It just might be less years on it, less mowing hours. Lupita says, Larry the lawnmower guy, question mark. Careful, you're his best friend now. That'd be like, Zach will know this.
That's a good thing though, because best friends, you usually get discounts on stuff.
Yeah. Zach will be, that's like Menards the paint guy.
Oh, God.
That was the kind of friendship we didn't really want. That was a different story, but anyway. So went back when Zach was preoccupied painting, and he just painted and painted and painted as he was getting his room situated when he was first moving in last October through December timeframe. I imagine Cecil fixing it. Oh yeah, no, he's not so much the lawnmower guy. Cecil's the one who recommended Larry, the lawnmower guy. So, and then he says, emo grass crying, like, please cut me, please. Yeah. Something like that, yeah. So, anyway, so they just had dropped it off. It ran as good as new can be, I mean, it wasn't puttering as much as it was before. Started right up. I seen his fixes to it and stuff, and it wasn't leaking gas anymore, so that was good. So I was like, okay, because my goal was to try to get another season out of her, but it might be ending earlier, and I might need to do something by September. I don't know. We'll see. Or July, August.
Yes.
So we will see. I mean, it wouldn't hurt having a black lawnmower, but I guess I can't go necessarily off of those colors, even though I have a black vehicle and I have black clothes. And, yeah. So anyway, they just dropped it off of the trailer. I got on it. They took off. I started mowing. Then I was like, okay, good. We can get this done because we still had the Mansfield reformatory visit for the Parapsycon visit this weekend, which would have been tomorrow. So that was the plan, to get the whole yard mowed Thursday and be done with it, and then focus more so Friday or tonight on make sure packed any last minute things. Go to bed early, which originally we were scheduling Creatures of the Night live stream to probably be as early as like 6:30 or 7, if plans had originally gone the way that they did, and just go for a half hour to 45 minutes and then call it quits, because we'd have to leave at 1 or 2 in the morning to do an 8-hour drive out there, plus the time change because they're on East Coast time, so going to Ohio, you're an hour ahead.
Cutting through my home state.
Yeah, going through Indiana, yay!
God help me.
That's the last time we went to Indiana. That was bad news.
Yes,
so
yes, it was.
She can talk about that too if you want. But so long story short, so I started mowing, and then I was focusing on the front because that's what people see when they drive by. It's the front of the yard, presentation. Anyway, but I did kind of one of these like U-turn things, drove the mower back. I have my phone on me, mind you, but it is loud and the tractor vibrates and stuff, so even if you call me, even with the sound on, I might not be able to hear it. I really want, this event especially has made it to where I want to secure some kind of a phone holding device right dead center in the steering wheel.
Or do what I do and get a headphone.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do anything to it. It's one of those electric shock things in my toe. Get a headphone in so that if it goes off, you can hear it. That's part of the reason why I listen to music when I'm mowing and stuff, because I have the volume up and turned on so it's not on vibrate like I normally have it when I'm home. But that way I can hear it go off versus being in my pocket.
There's that, or just what I was going to say, it would be right there in front of me all the time, so I'd have it there so when the screen lit up, I'd see notifications, and then I could stop. Luckily, not much time elapsed, maybe 2 minutes if that, from when this happened, so it wouldn't have shaved off a whole lot of time. I mean, I was pretty much right on it naturally without even knowing she was in distress. So then, from my point of view, and then I'll let you go and kind of a little bit from the starting part of it for yours. So I'm mowing, and I'm going towards the direction of where she was, and earlier that afternoon, she took a break and she was sitting on the grass, so she's doing that, and trying to avoid asthma because she suffers that. She had to use an inhaler at least once, right? 3 times. So she had to use it multiple times, and so I thought it was just one of those another breaks that she was taking. And expression on her face at first, because I couldn't hear what she was saying. So it was first glimpse when I'm riding this thing over there. I thought she was like, "Oh, you got it back! Like you got it back!" Yeah, like she's just excited. But no. It's kind of like one of those moments where sometimes when someone's hurting emotionally and they're crying, but their crying sounds like laughter, and then you're kind of like, oh. At first you're like, oh, and then you feel very awkward. I've had that before where sometimes their crying sounds like they're about to laugh, and you're like, oh.
Well, normally my crying is I'm laughing because I'm just one of those. Either when I get really pissed off, I cry. So when I'm actually hurt, 90% of the time, it's more sounding like laughter.
Well, this time, when I saw it, especially when I looked over, I seen her face, and she wasn't smiling necessarily, but the way she was yelling for me, something was off. Something seemed off about it. So I shut the mower off immediately, ran over to her, and I can't even remember what she first said at that time. But basically, her foot was in front of her. She had it out, and then I seen it. I was like, oh, they have here. The doctors that asked her impulsively, she said, yeah, throw it away. The other shoe, the good shoe that wasn't damaged. So we only have one shoe now from this pair, which irrelevant because she's going to need new shoes now anyway. And I'm thinking of getting her Vans. This is the shoe that she was wearing on the foot that got clipped. So if you can see, you see that gash there?
You can actually lift it and show them how it's ripped.
See how it's ripped? And you see how far it went in there? Her foot was in this shoe.
When the blade from the lawnmower caught it.
So, it's just, and it's her first time seeing it just moments ago, since that incident, but it was kind of, I think, mind-blowing. Like I said, it was one of those things where it's good to not wear flip-flops when you're mowing. This is why. It's also not recommended to do that.
It's also a very good thing that I make sure that any shoes that I have, especially since those were my work shoes, they have rubber soles versus that foam crap that they like to put on shoes now. I absolutely detest them. They hurt my feet. Well, these ones actually were hurting my feet because I didn't properly break them in regardless, but it was a whole lot better than if I would have wore flip-flops or even my other shoes that don't have as thick of rubber on them, which I would have been very, very, very sad if my skull shoes had met that same fate.
Right. So immediately, I'm just thinking more on the lines of, okay, I'm evaluating the situation. I'm like, okay, I need to run and get my paranormal team's first aid kit. Because we have one for the team. And so I went upstairs, grabbed it, brought it out because there's disinfectant in it, and the gauze strips and pain meds and stuff. But nothing I had in there because it was over the counter. The pain thing, it wouldn't have been, so I didn't worry about that. But it was just keeping it, just keeping the germs, keeping that crap out of there so there's no infection until we get a chance to have, a hospital look at it. And so that was my first thought to do. And she gave me kudos on it because she said I wouldn't have thought of that.
No, I didn't care at that point.
Yeah.
I was in pain.
But I had to. It was necessary.
And the thing is that the first aid kits that I've always owned, I've had disinfecting wipes, which let me tell you how much I wasn't going to shove a wipe in my foot. But I've never had it where it was a liquid form that you could pour like water. So I was actually very, very thankful that he had that.
Yeah, so I did that and then gauzed it up as, wrapped it as best as I could. Then from there, I was like, "Are you able to at least get up on your other leg at all? Yes or no?" And so she wasn't really sure at first when I asked her. And I said, "Well, let me go back to the garage, grab the wagon." I was thinking anything. Let me get the wagon. Maybe I can help, lift you up and then put you into the wagon to be able to pull you then over to the vehicle to get you then in the vehicle. By the time I brought the wagon out of the garage to head back to her, her ass was already up. She was not where I left her.
I was crawling.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, Emery would have been a baby, so it was about 6 years ago or so. I had sprained the same ankle. And so I quite literally had to crawl from my bedroom to my car so I could go pick my oldest up from school. So I got in that mindset of, okay, I need to move. I need to go and do this. I have to get closer. So I got on my hands and knees. I kept my foot up in the air and I started crawling. It was not easy and it was excruciating, but I just kept having to repeat myself, I got this, I can do this. Just to be, I felt like the little engine who could. I think I can.
And those were the few things that we're saying. Mind you, she was still keeping her sense of humor during all this. And I guess apparently I was too, because I did remind her in a way to try to make us both feel good, because I was starting to also have one of those little panic moments. It got tense so much that my head started getting numb. If you've ever had that feeling, you know what I mean. It's not a good feeling, especially then when you're driving someone to a hospital, ER, and you're almost getting lightheaded.
Do you want me to send you on Facebook the picture that I took while I was sitting there so they can, I mean, it's not super gruesome or anything.
Sure. And we'll put a disclaimer if you're squeamish about wounds, just before, like 5 seconds before we show this, I'll do a countdown, give you a chance to look away. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, I kept telling her, it's like, you've had 2 kids before. It's like pushing watermelons out of your area. And so I was trying to say that a little bit. She even in that pain, she's like, yeah. I mean, she kind of mixed laughter with her pain face, and it's like, okay.
Especially seeing how with my oldest, they put my epidural in wrong. Oddly enough, this was the same leg that had actually swelled up and was completely numb during that.
That leg's been through so much.
It really has. But I basically had my daughter naturally because they put the epidural in wrong, so I felt everything. The only thing that was numb was my leg, and it swelled up like a balloon. so yeah, I know the actual feel of childbirth, not the watered down version that we get when the epidural works correctly, like it did with my second daughter.
See, and I know some of us guys are probably like, we're happy we're guys, and that's why I say I have kudos. I was just telling my mom because she wanted to call back tonight, so we were talking to her on the way back, and I agree that to a vast degree, I guess in a generalized statement, I think it has been proven in some ways, but just in overall broad general statement, women have a pain tolerance that's just naturally higher than men, and it makes sense because they're what they have to do. They're built to push out watermelons and cantaloupes of all sorts and sizes out from between their legs. So us guys were like, whew,
dodged a bullet on that one.
Yes. Let's see here. Luke just says, I need a lawnmower. Been cutting yard with a small weed eater. Oh, that sucks. Wonder what size of yard it is.
I used to have a manual push mower where it didn't have an engine or anything else. Didn't take gas. I pushed that bitch and it sucked.
Zach says, eek, and that was to the shoe.
Yeah.
He says, at least they didn't fly you to Indy, and you will find Will Byers next door to you. That Stranger Things.
Yeah. I mean, at least if I would have gone to Indiana, that's another thing, is my Medicaid and stuff is still based in Indiana. So I don't know if I'm getting charged for all of this, and that's we'll go down that story later. But
Yeah. So anyway, so managed to, do that. We say a few, things to each other, try to be like, we got this or whatever. I'm also like, doing this kind of thing too. And so get her into the vehicle. And one of my other last thoughts before we like button up the vehicle and start heading down the road was, let me grab a grocery bag real quick to like put on there in case she's, because the amazing thing to me was it wasn't a huge blood loss type thing. I mean, she left a little stain in the patch of grass back there, but it wasn't like a gushing type thing like I thought maybe it would be of an injury of this kind of traumatic event. But no, it wasn't really.
But also, mind you, because of the fact that he poured the or the disinfectant in it, and then we wrapped it with gauze, and I still had my sock on, that all kind of helped keep it from bleeding all over.
Right, so it wasn't messy. It wasn't like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
I didn't hit an artery or anything
right.
like that.
It wasn't like her toe wasn't squirting Old Faithful. It wasn't like that.
Thank God.
Gosh. Yeah. So
it could have been so much worse.
Oh, you could have been in shock, pointing across the yard. I don't even want to think about that.
Let's not put that one out there because I don't.
Pointing at your toe already cut. Anyway, so I grab a bag because just to keep things in place to make sure that it can be sealed up too, and also make sure blood, if it is bleeding, it's not creating a mess. So I went ahead and grabbed that in a hurry. While I grabbed, I don't know what else I got.
My bag.
Your bag, yeah. That was the main reason I went back in the house, honestly.
It had my license and everything in it, and I didn't know if I would need it. It's always good to have that because I know at least in Indiana they always ask for my license and my insurance card and stuff. Oh, speaking of, don't let me forget, I gotta email that insurance card.
And it makes it easier to have that stuff because when they handed me the slip, I was like, I'm gonna fill this out the best of my ability, but I'm not, we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so got her in the vehicle, bag on there. The car ride over, panicking, seemed like the longest car ride ever, and each bump and every little turn or whatever. I tried to go delicately, but still with purpose.
He was driving my type of driving.
Which, yeah, she drives usually like 15 over.
Yeah.
And
which I've had to stop too because of my car, but, that's a whole nother story.
Because my thought here was like, okay, now that I see that she's mobile, and I see she's still intact, for the most part, from what we could see at least, instead of calling an ambulance, waiting for them to get there, let's just get in the vehicle and go now. And saving her an ambulance bill was also, I was thinking of that too, cognizant, knowing what those can cost. So got her to, so long story short, so we got her to the hospital then, went to the small town, county, rural type hospital in Macomb. And first I called them, and I'm like, well, I can't really, for some reason I couldn't, it just rang and rang and rang. So I called 911, and it's ironic how long it seems like 911 takes to, it rang like 5 times. Mm-hmm. You think 911 would be like, and they would just,
Well, it's also a smaller county area, so.
There's that, but it is surprising and disappointing at the same time.
Right.
When someone has a even more emergency than this. Anyway, so reach 911 just to tell them, it's like, what the situation is, we're headed to the hospital there, are they open? And they said, well, seeming like a strange question, it's like, they should be. And I said, well, I tried to call over there, because I was not about to go there. For some reason, they decided to have a holiday. I'm not about this. I'm like, I'm just going to divert myself then over to Rushville or one of these other small towns around by that I know has an emergency room. Anyway, so
which would have taken even longer.
Well, yeah, it was the opposite direction. I had to turn around.
Oh, gosh.
So anyway, they gave a heads up. I guess they went ahead and they did, because once I got there, the people were waiting. I mean, they seemed to be. They were like, Sasha. It was like, yep. So got her out of the vehicle there. A couple of their staff came and helped her in a wheelchair. Got her in immediately. Then I removed the vehicle from the ambulance emergency room pull-up area, so I could get out of the way in case someone else had to come in. Parked it. They went back in there and they told me that they they're with her and they'll let me know an update in a moment. And then in the meantime, here's a sheet of paper, so they handed me, and I was like, because they're like, our records indicate Sasha's not been here before. I was like, well, that is very valid, yes. So,
which is what I told them as soon as they wheeled me in. No, I've never been here before.
Right. Well, they had to indicate it again to me. So, I filled it out the best of my ability, including looking up her Facebook page and make sure I spelled her last name correctly.
I wondered.
I did. I want to make sure I didn't get, because I hate spelling people's names wrong.
And at this point, especially after this, I'm at the point where I kind of want to legally change my last name because I had to spell it out for them. As soon as like they wheeled me in, they had to write down my name and stuff for the wristbands and all that shit. And I'm just like trying to spell my last name, and I'm in pain, and I didn't want to do it in the first place. So it was like, I need a simpler last name. Thank you so much, Dad, for keeping the last name. It's a pain in the ass, and it's mispronounced enough times as it is without having to try and spell it and then clarify whether I'm saying a D or a B or an N or an M.
Yeah. So anyway, so to get there, I'm filling it out. I did pretty good. I knew her. I have her birthday memorized now, which I'm proud of myself. I'm like, yeah. So I got that on there. Next of like emergency contacts, I decided to put her dad first, and then I put. Can I say his name? Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, father of her children, on there next. I left myself just out of it. I didn't have.
Oh, guess what? You're an emergency contact in
Yeah.
there now.
On your because it's funny. They have like 3 different versions of the same form, and so I was on there some way, shape, or form anyway. But for my perspective, filling out the form, I kept it to those 2. And it's funny, down by the name and contact number and relationship, at least for her dad, I scrambled it. I put his name in the phone number section, and then I drew arrows to get to, this was meant to be over here, because again, I'm just like, but when I filled out Chris's information, I did it perfect. So your dad, the mistake with your dad that I made on there just gave me the practice I needed to get it right for Chris.
Which I'm fairly certain in situations like this, they're kind of used to it. I mean, I've done it before, and that wasn't even an emergency situation. That was just filling out school paperwork.
Right. And Lord knows, anyone who's been in the hospital, you're signing your soul or kidney or your testicle if you're a guy.
Oh yeah, my soul is completely
everything is.
I
I don't know how many times she had to sign. I had to sign enough. But I know she signed probably double.
Triple.
Yeah, easily. So anyway, so she's taken away then. So I'm kind of sitting out there, waiting, and she gave me very briefly before she got separated from me, kind of gave me her phone, told me how to get into it, to contact her dad, and Chris, and
my mom.
Which I never got to her, but I got to
my dad got a hold of her.
Okay,
though,
okay, so it worked out.
Or no, I sent her the initial text because by that time you had come back and there was no service really in the hospital, so I had to connect it to Wi-Fi so the text could even go through.
Right.
Because Chris's went through, but my dad's didn't until I had my phone back in my possession and was able to connect. So.
Right. Oh, and Zach says, "Oh God, PG-13. I hope not." Raw. And says they might be short-staffed because hospitals don't usually take days off. Well, I thought of that too. I was like, well, yeah, just answer somebody, We're in panic mode at that point, It's like we got to get some help here because I knew time was of the essence with something like this, as most things, emergency-wise, ER worthy, I should say. Anyway, so at that point, I'm in the waiting room. So that's Chapter 1, we'll call that. Your perspective then from the Mower aspect.
Okay.
What happened and what did you do?
So, let me first start off by saying I have ADHD. Because of some issues with my car where it is not in a state to make it to Indiana, I chose this week not to go and visit my kids like I normally would. which had I actually done that, none of this would have happened because it happened on a Thursday and I would have been coming back into town. But my paycheck had gotten delayed, so I ended up staying home that day because I couldn't go and get my car fixed, and I just worked from home. And I decided, since I'm not going to work, I'm just doing computer classes online, I'm not going to take my very last pill for my ADHD, which I take Vyvanse. So when I'm not on my meds, my impulse control is very low. I'm very impulsive and don't think things through. Anybody who has had ADHD or dealt with it, people with ADHD kind of understand what that is. So while I'm mowing, I noticed that because of the grass being taller than normal, the part where the grass spits out on the side was getting clogged up, and it already had shut the mower off once back there already, and so I was kind of irritated with it because this had been an ongoing issue earlier in the day when I was mowing part of the front of the lawn, and he had raised the level so that it wasn't cutting as short, which helped a lot. But by the time I got back there, it was just too long. So not really thinking a whole lot about it, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to kick the side of this to kind of loosen up the grass. Well, when I kicked it, shut up, I see that face. When I kicked it, it kicked the little black piece, it folds upward. It kicked it up, and when it did so, the blade caught my foot. I didn't realize at first that I'd actually sliced my foot. I thought I just broke it. I didn't collapse or anything like that. I was still standing. So I decided to sit in the grass, took my shoe off, or looked at my shoe and realized that it had fucked up my shoe pretty bad. So I took my shoe off to see the damage, see if I broke anything. And then I realized that I had sliced completely through my foot. Luckily not all the way through, because otherwise we'd be having a very different conversation and I probably would not be here right now. I'd still be in the hospital.
Let's just say a few factors that played a role that we concluded with. And one of them was the thickness of the grass in that area. It has been known, with the lawnmower having issues, that it will slow the speed of the spinning blade a bit. So there's one thing.
That was a saving grace. The fact that it was already clogged, so it was moving slower, definitely helped slow the blade down so it didn't do as much damage as it could have. I mean, it still did quite a bit of damage, but not as badly as it could have. So I didn't even realize just how deep it was, because let me tell you, I wasn't about to take my foot and kind of pull back on my toe to see how deep it went, but I could see bone fragments, and I knew it was bad. So after my initial panic, I try and call him. I called him, I think, what'd you say, 5 times?
5 times.
And
back
then,
to back.
I was on the verge of calling 911 because I didn't know if he had gone inside to do his workout, because I was back there mowing, but I heard a lawnmower coming and I heard it coming closer. I didn't realize at first it was him. I thought it was Cecil, which is our neighbor. But I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, help. And of course, because I'm in pain, it wasn't as loud as I can scream.
Yeah, because you can. She
I
has
can
a
belt
Volt
it
box,
out.
yes.
I definitely can belt it out. But then I realized it was Eric, and he's telling me hold on, because he was gonna come over and show me the mower or whatever, and I'm like, no, this is an emergency. Come over here now. And he realized that something was wrong and came over, and I'm holding my foot because the pressure seemed to kind of relieve a little bit of the pain, but it was one of those, we needed to get to the hospital immediately. And as I said, while he went to go get the stuff ready for us to leave, I crawled my happy ass as far as I could up until he came over with the wagon, and then I used that, kind of like I'm having to use this walker thing, to take a step, jump forward, take a step, jump forward. And then we got to the point where getting from these bricks that we have up onto the driveway, and I was hesitant. I'm like, I don't know if I can make this. I'm like, all right, I got this. So we get up, get in there, and as we're on the way to the hospital, like he said, he was trying to make me laugh and all that. And I'm holding the pressure on my foot to try and keep it from hurting as much. And then I remember one of the first things that you do when you have a laceration like this, you need to make a tourniquet. It helps stop the blood flow. And if there was an infection in my blood, then I definitely needed to have that tourniquet on there to keep it from spreading. Because people die from blood poisoning all the time. I mean, maybe not as much as they used to back in olden days, but I had a friend that actually had passed away from, she had gotten a blood infection and it caused a clot in her brain, and she was only 28. So, I made a tourniquet out of like the Walmart bag that he had brought in the car to try and keep me from dripping blood. There was a secondary bag in it, so I was very, very grateful for that because I was able to use that for a tourniquet. Then once we actually got to the hospital and they got me in the room, I'm asking, like, when can he come back? Because I needed a familiar face. I needed that support. And they're like, oh, well, let's take this off. Let's get it cleaned up. Let's see where we're at, blah, blah, blah. And I'm listening to this doctor talking to one of the nurses and basically saying that the toes are going to have to go, that it was that deep of a laceration. And so it's making my panic attack worse, and my body's already in shock. I could not stop shivering to save my life. Like, my teeth are chattering. I wasn't cold at first, but my teeth were chattering because of my body being in shock. And so she's looking at this, and it was a mess. And listening to her talk that way, now mind you, my dad, I love him to death, but a couple of years back, about 5 years ago, he lost a toe on the same foot from a bone infection. So I'm like sitting here thinking, now mind you, like we talked about, my humor is still kind of up there. And I'm like, I don't want to be more like my dad. I don't want to be missing toes too. And I told him as much at one point in time. But, so I'm sitting here thinking there's no saving my toes. Like, I'm going to end up missing at least 2 toes. And then they tell me that they are going to airlift me to a hospital in Springfield so that I can get the proper care that I need, because that's where they have more options to be able to take care of this kind of laceration. But they were mentioning open fractures and all this other stuff, and I apparently did a very good number on my foot.
Yeah, so kind of going into chapter 2 here. So this is me, in the waiting room during this, still kind of figuring out what happened. And then one of the people come out and say, "Are she's ready? You come in." And me being cognizant about COVID-19 and how hospitals react to that still. Not every hospital is the same, as we found that out even just in the same state. So I was like, because I didn't grab my mask this time. I still have it in I don't know. I still have it in my vehicle. My N95 one, I think I have. Anyway, so I'd asked her, it's like, do I need to have a mask on? I know COVID things are still kind of a thing. And she's like, well, at this hospital, technically yes, but I'm not going to worry about that.
If they would have asked me to put on a mask, I would have told them to go fuck themselves. So
there's that.
There is that. So I was at the point, I didn't care. I was having a hard enough time breathing without them trying to shove a mask on my face.
So, yeah. So they were very laxed, even if it was, against the protocol. But it was nice. And because mine, that I'd rather have gone out to the car, even though it would have been inconvenience, but I'd rather wear mine. They're little paper thin ones that they have that they give you. They're disposable or just
garbage
crap. Before I go on here, Zach says Eric's eyes look traumatized. Well,
yes,
it happened not even 48 hours ago, so I'm sure I'm still going to be radiating in her too. This as we're talking about this, and it's still fresh. But so anyway, went back through the double doors they had, and she took me to her, and so then I seen her in there. her eyes lit up a little bit when she finally saw me. I don't know, from her perspective, it seemed like it was years that they kept, but I was just out in the parking lot for a little while.
Forever.
But yeah, time's always a weird thing with that. Anyway, so I saw her there, then touched her, then and held her hand and went over to the bed that she was in. That's when I'd heard, that I might have to remove a toe or two from it. I'm like, I felt really bad. There's not a point of this where it's like any kind of responsibility kind of thing.
Which is something I had to constantly remind him.
It's like, you were helping me do this back there, even though it was a mistake she made, but
which
still.
Is part of the reason I had to clarify that I made the offer to go and mow the lawn, because he felt like he shouldn't have asked me, and I'm like, no, you didn't ask me. I offered, and I had to drive that point home because I made the offer. It was my choice, and I even told him while I'm sitting there and they're working on my phone, I'm like, I'm a grown-ass woman, I make my decisions.
And we all make our own mistakes, damn it. So, anyway, at that point, that's also around the same time that I found that they're flying her out to Springfield. And me being this, because I have a background in family too, my mom knows where I'm coming from, and I can say this too. Small town county hospitals, they serve their own little purpose, I guess, when they come through for certain things, especially if it's a immediate situation. Sometimes they can be helpful and they serve their own purpose. I'm not going to bash them completely. However, there are instances where people with seemingly low-scale ailments go in and then they end up worse. Or they end up in a body bag. It's like, you just went in for the flu and now you're dead at your county hospital. Why? So when I heard that they were going to fly her then to Springfield, part of me is like, okay. I mean, the fact that they feel they have to life flight her, I mean, that in itself, I grew up thinking of that as being like, this is serious. Anytime you see like flight involved in a situation, usually that raises the bar.
Well, and mind you, that in itself was kind of a traumatic thing for me. I had been in an accident with a motorcyclist some years ago. He was not wearing his helmet, and he hit my car so hard that my car spun and hit my boyfriend, my kid's dad, boyfriend at the time, his sister's boyfriend's car, which is the only thing that stopped my car, shifted their entire frame forward and totaled out their car too. That shows you how fast he was going when he hit my car. Well, they had to airlift him to the hospital. So it kind of brought back memories of that, and I hadn't had a chance to really tell you that one. But
yeah.
So it was traumatic all around. It brought back some old memories on both of our ends.
So I did get, as I was leaving, because it took a little while there, and they were asking me, it's like, do you want to go down to Springfield too? And I was like, well, if she wants me.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going. I got to stop back at the mansion, secure the mower, make sure it's not get stolen by anybody, because it was just out in the yard. The little push mower, it's no one's loss if for some reason someone took that, but I'm not throwing that out there. Don't do it. But, because you see what it's capable of. Don't take it.
It's got its own traumatic experiences to work through now.
It has character now, and by God, it needs to be kept away in our garage now for the safety, like keeping guns off the streets. So anyway, so they were about ready to take her in there, and I don't know how many times through this process that they're gauging the pain scale of 1 through 10. I've heard that before. It's not rare at all, but
now
it was constantly being asked, and it was changing constantly.
Yeah, they were giving me fentanyl, which is apparently stronger and works quicker than morphine, which my pain at the time, it wasn't doing shit. Like, I was in that much pain, and my body was still in shock, so I don't know if I wasn't processing it or whatever, but it was not helping a whole lot. There were points in time where I could feel it, and it was helping, but for the most part, the pain was still very, very real, very, very intense. And so when they're asking me about my pain level and stuff, I'm just like, stop fucking asking me this. Like, I'm in pain. I, like, damn near chopped off my toes. Like, quit asking me. Just move on with our lives.
Right. And I've been, I heard it enough. I'm just like, okay, do you need to ask? This is really pretty bad. But I get it. There's a method to the madness. Because the pain levels and stuff, it tells them stuff that you might not think about. So, I mean, it gives them information.
And it told them, okay, we're going to push a little bit more of the fentanyl. And, like, they ended up asking me, like, how much I had weighed and how tall I was and stuff like that. Because obviously I wasn't getting up on a scale at that point. So I told them the last thing that I remembered and from when I was at my doctor's last. And so they decided that my body weight and my height was enough where they could go ahead and give me a little bit more to help with the pain and stuff. So between that and everybody asking me what happened,
yeah,
I was so fucking tired of explaining the story. Like, even on our way here tonight, I almost had him just pull up. I made a Facebook live video explaining what was going on because my dad had to open his mouth on one of my comments or on my posts and say something about, she is alive. How are you feeling? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to nip this in the butt real quick and just go ahead and make a live video so everybody knows what's going on.
And that's why, I mean, because I was she was leading on this. I'm just like, I'm not going to say anything about what's going on here because I want to make sure we know what's going on before we even put anything out there because, Rumorville can happen. We don't want that. And especially about something like this. And then
because we didn't know the state of whether or not I was losing limbs or
right,
anything.
Right. And another part of that though too was that it was going to be the immediate family which knew first, which rightfully so. It's understandable. So when she gave me the list of the names and stuff, I did what I could. I didn't get, like I said, to your mom, but that was all handled.
And my dad had asked me if I wanted him to keep my mom in the loop. So I told him, yeah, go ahead and keep her in the loop so that you weren't having to do as much on that end.
Because I felt more, I didn't mind reaching out to them, especially when she was still unable to. But when she's able to do it and has her phone back and is cognizant enough to be able to reach out, I felt much more comfortable with her doing that. And then I knew that she says what she needs to say and word it how she wants to word it.
Well, considering the fact that I met your family at a funeral, you kind of met mine through a traumatic experience too.
Yes. R.I.P. Grandma. But yeah, so no one on the membership side even of Society of Alternative Dimwits knew. So Jim didn't know. Zach didn't know.
And that was kind of my request as it was because of the fact that
Vesper didn't know.
One, we didn't really know what was going on, and until we had a set, this is where we're at, I didn't want to give them that anxiety because as it was, him having as much anxiety as he did just from being there and helping me through it.
And I know everyone that's current member on our active roster on this channel has some form of anxiety issues. So
yeah, and so until we knew exactly where we were at with everything, I didn't want to go down that path and have everybody worrying and then it constantly changing and then them trying to reach out and be like, how's she doing? What's the status? Have they decided anything? Have they made any progress? Anything like that. I just didn't
wasn't the time.
I didn't want him to have to deal with that. I didn't want them to have to deal with it. So I was like, all right, how about we not say anything to anybody right now? I even told Chris, don't tell the girls anything because they had school today. And I didn't want that being on the forefront of their mind and then they're not able to focus in school. Which I've got to call them tomorrow and fill them in on all this fun shit too. So that's going to be a fun conversation.
Zach says, you have a Mower. There, Emo Bro. Just glad the Emo Mansion doesn't require a sacrifice now and then. Yeah. This is again with the whole like kind of documenting this, even this morbid and kind of traumatizing adventure. She has some footage. I haven't organized any of this yet. Again, understandably so. We just got back tonight, but
and it is gonna turn into a vlog.
There's gonna be a vlog about this,
and I'm gonna actually within the next couple days go out to the mower, face the damn thing, or tell the mower that I forgive it for nearly chopping off my foot, and then kind of go through a video step by step of this is what happened. So that other people who are impulsive like me and think, hey, this might be a good idea, might, stop and double think and be like, hey, maybe I should remember that girl, like, almost chopped off her foot doing this. I shouldn't do it.
It's one of those things with years of experience of documenting things and having a lot of aspects on camera of my life that even Angela's suicide in 2020, about not even 3 days later, my best friend Colton came down to visit me and give me support, and we did a live stream to talk about, and I just opened up and let out emotions and stuff. And at that time, I remember several folks and friends of mine were like, that was strong of you to do that, especially so soon, just to be able to just and talk about it, and then raise that awareness about suicide awareness and all that stuff. At that time, I'm juggling all that crap that was happening. And
honestly, it was probably really healthy for you to have done that rather than keeping it inside.
Maybe. I kind of wonder if it's like, not ruling out therapy in a professional level yet, but the fact that I've been able to stay as grounded as I have since then, and this challenge coming up, the supportiveness of Facebook family and friends that I've had, especially in the alternative community, I think that's maybe what has kept me grounded as strong as I can, when many people would have just buckled with something like that. So I was going to show, speaking of that, this is my angle of the helicopter coming in. This is, again, still on the phone. I'm not done anything with any of this stuff yet. She has not collected I have not got all the footage that she shot yet.
Well, I didn't do a whole lot because I was sitting in a hospital bed 90% of the time.
Yeah. So, 1 second here. Look at this. So that was a helicopter. It was starting to come down. I guess at the county hospital, it's kind of the helipad is not on top of the building like Springfield has it. It was kind of out in a field, is what it seemed like. Is that right to say? Do you remember that?
Yeah. And then here's mine from. This is my aerial view. I didn't do one very long so on this helicopter, I've got 2 pilots sitting behind me, so I couldn't even do like a selfie video.
Yeah, I heard that.
I couldn't really do a selfie video or anything like that because I didn't want to inadvertently have them in it and then them not be okay with that kind of thing. So then there was the one that was in front of me. They it seriously reminded me of MASH. If any of you have seen the show, you've seen how they used to have the injured people sitting on the outside in a little crevice thing. Well, instead of that, they had me on the inside part, but it's still a very, very narrow area to be sitting in. And so the pilots were behind me. I had these big old earmuff things on so that they could communicate with me, and it helped drown out the noise from the helicopter itself. And then I had a third pilot that was sitting in the front. Now, the only funny thing about that was the fact that one of the pilots' names was Jordan. So my daughter is going to find that absolutely hilarious that there was a guy flying me named Jordan because it's the same name as hers. But, yeah. I mean, there was a point in time while on the helicopter, they ended up giving me even more of the fentanyl because the pain started to come back pretty bad in my foot. And so by the time it was about 10 minutes out, it was a good 32-minute or 35-minute helicopter ride. Considering it's an hour and a half from the mansion, they cut down quite a bit of time just by flying. But
yeah.
by the about 10-minute mark, 10-15 minutes, I was ready for a nap. I did not get that nap.
So meanwhile, I was making the drive down there, and I, of course, like I said, stopped at the mansion first, parked the rider mower because that's where I left it. Didn't even worry about the push mower. I'm like I said, I'm like, well, if it's stolen before I get home, it's stolen. But I parked the rider mower, secured that, locked the garages, locked up the house. Well, went in, grabbed a few things, locked the house up, and then went to meet her there. Now, finding the exact location, that was an ordeal. I guess I went into... There's a visitor parking area, but it was kind of on the pediatric side of the building, and the emergency room side was on the opposite side of this building. And so by that time, she was still, I guess...
I was in triage still at that
Right, yeah, so they were taking their sweet time, basically, with that, because it took me, but again, flight time versus driving time. Yeah, driving times normally, especially from the Macomb area, which is even half hour out of the opposite direction from here, easily an hour and 50 minutes maybe from there, and an hour and 25 minutes or so from the mansion. So, give you a perspective.
Except for where I was sitting in the hospital, because I map quested it, or I did it through maps on my phone, and it said an hour and 31 minutes.
Yeah, but from a flight perspective, it was like
35.
not even, it was 35 minutes to fly there. So, of course, they had to tell me, of course, like they would. It's like, don't try to speed there, because the helicopter's always going to win, and, they were telling, so it's like, I'm not worried about it because of deer. So I was taking my time, but at the same time keeping a steady pace. I wasn't driving nearly as fast as I was to get her to the ER the first time. So I was going back in with my normal range, but still...
And I told him, again, keeping the sense of humor, I'm like, one of us in the hospital right now is enough. I don't need you showing up here in a bed next to me.
She needed me to be intact, I think was her words.
I said, I need you here intact.
So, did that, and hung out at the hospital all night. Yay! Most of that time was spent in a waiting room of some shape or form. But again, I vlogged even me walking around the empty halls. Again, just the hospital sounds, the beep, 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 and sensors and stuff you can hear just through especially when it's just quiet. And you can hear that through the hallways. It just reverbs through it. I'm like, this is great. Hopefully I don't hear a or something. I'll be like, I don't need to help a spirit cross over hopefully tonight. I'm not in the shape or form. That's not my business here. So there's just a lot of waiting. It just seemed like forever. And then finally, they came down. The nurse, it showed me, I went to the room where she was supposed to be in. I guess she wasn't even there yet. So
they sent him to the room that I would end up in after.
So out of time frame here, So anyway, I was waiting in that room for a little while, and then she texted me and said that, well, I moved her to the area where they're gonna do surgery or whatever, and I'm like, so I told that to one of the nurses or whatever on that floor, and then she's like, oh, well, it's floor 3. Let me take you down there. But so followed her down there. Finally, after I think like 3 hour separation, was probably the longest. It seemed like forever. Because I remember her saying to me, I think she was addressing it to the lady that was bringing me to her.
I said, did you bring me a gift?
Friend? I thought you said friend.
I might have said a friend. I thought I said gift.
Oh, did you bring me a friend? I think is what she said, but it could have been gift. Either way, but anyway, so Then that's when I met the actual doctor surgeons. I think they were the two gentlemen that
Yeah.
seemed very nice and knowledgeable about what exactly was happening. And their prognosis was, yep, save the toes. I mean, she told me that briefly before in a message when I was walking up to the building, but for the state of this, chronological order here, I'm just going to indicate that I found out through them ultimately, because I think that's probably how she found out. So that it was just completely different from what the Macomb people were saying. So she didn't have to even lose one toe.
So let me jump in on my end on this. When I got there, now mind you, there was a lot of other people around, and I mean, it's a big city. It looked ghetto. It had me
Downtown Springfield, if you
yeah, it had me a little concerned going into this because they're wheeling me in. I'm in a lot of pain. I see people kind of all over the fucking place, and it did not give me the greatest feeling in the world, to put it nicely. And then when they went to take off the bandage that the Macomb people had put on, the lady had put some sort of, I don't know if it was wrapped gauze or some sort of cloth or something to kind of staunch the bleeding, but it had kind of moved up, so it was kind of digging into my foot where it was sliced. And so they had to pour water on my foot to peel this off. And I'm like screaming because it hurt so bad. And of course, he wasn't there yet. He didn't even get to see me in the triage area whatsoever. And like I'm asking him about him from the moment I knew that he had arrived on the hospital grounds. But they peeled it off, and they're looking at my wound, and then they had done X-rays at the other one, which that in itself was hell, trying to have me move my foot just right so that they could take these pictures while it was sitting open. And then they kind of re-wrapped it for a little bit. My body already went back into shock, and they were giving me meds, and it didn't feel like it was working whatsoever. Then this doctor came in that is not optometrist, that's eye doctor, ophthalmologist, I think it is,
Something
for
like that,
the foot.
yeah.
It starts with an O. But he comes in, he undoes the bandage that they had already just put back on, and he's examining my foot, and I'm screaming because he's putting all these pressures and stuff on. I know why he was doing it. It was to check the blood flow within my toes and to make sure I could feel things. But let me explain to you how painful it was, because the drugs weren't helping, and it was a gaping wound, and it just hurt a lot. So apparently there was enough blood flow in my toes that he had decided that I could save my foot. And that's when I had sent him a message about it. But then he kind of left it open while they were deciding what their course of action was going to be. And oh, you're pulling up the picture?
Yeah, the photo here.
Alright. Let him pull up the photo real quick. Viewer discretion is advised, because this is what it looked like in the sock.
All right, so 3, 2, 1. Let's do this stupid. Yeah.
And you can't even see just how bad it was at that point, but I wasn't going to tip my toe open to be able to show you guys just exactly how deep, but it does give you an idea of where it was slashed. So he's looking at my foot, and then he kind of leaves it flapping in the wind, unbandaged. And like I said, when it was bandaged, it felt better because it was like everything was being held together. So they'd given me meds twice at this point, and it wasn't helping at all because my foot just it was left out. And so shock was starting to set back in. I'm crying and shivering, and there's one guy that's in the fucking back end of the fucking ER that I'm seeing. He's kind of just staring at me, and I'm like, what the fuck is his problem? Why the fuck is he staring at me? Like, get me some meds, get me somebody that can help me. Don't just fucking stare at me. And then finally he comes in, he tells me that there's 2 courses of action that they could take. One is to clean it out and do whatever repairs that they can, and go from there. The other option was to clean it out, and if it wasn't clean enough, that they would have to wait a couple days before they could do the repairs. And then he wrapped my foot back up, and that's when I found out I was having surgery that day. And then the guy that had been staring at me across the way ends up being the one that takes me to the waiting room to have my surgery. Now, mind you, after they had bandaged it and I was waiting for somebody to take me up there, I'm hearing an argument.
Oh, yes.
So, I don't know what's going on. I make a small video about it, how, you know, it was fantastic to hear, you know, doctor and a patient, whoever the fuck it was, arguing at this hospital loud enough that, you know, it seemed like everybody else got quiet just to listen. And so I'm like, this makes me feel really great being here right now. Now, mind you, my first impression was it was a ghetto hospital.
And as I was arriving, kind of similar to this, I was trying to find her and where to go, and the security guy was like, "Oh, what's your name? Oh, hold on. Takes the phone. He puts the phone down, and he speaks back to 2 other security officers behind him. Is like, I guess it was like an EMT fighting or saying some stuff, starting some fights with a nurse or something like that. Can you go out there now by the ambulance bay? Go pronto." And I'm like, "Oh, busy night for you." And he's like, "Unfortunately. How can I help you?" You know.
So while this guy is pushing me up there, of course he asked me what happened. He said that he'd been waiting in his little nook over there, wondering what the fuck happened to me, which apparently is why he was staring. And so I explained everything, and then I asked him what the hell was with the fighting. So it turns out that an EMT had called a nurse a bitch. And so she in turn told her manager, and so her manager got into it with this EMT, which is why they had security escort him out. I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that kind of goes with the vibe I was getting from this hospital. But I mean, the people there were super fucking nice. I think a lot of it just, especially like when I was giving birth to my daughter, I hated everybody. I didn't want to deal with them anymore. I looked at Chris at one point and told him I didn't want any more kids. Like, pain does some things to you. So, even though they were, like, seriously the nicest people I've ever had to deal with at a hospital, I just wasn't having it. I wanted my foot wrapped. I felt like it was taking too long because, like, my foot, it has a gaping hole in it, and I'm bleeding, and it's just kind of chilling there, and they hadn't wrapped it back up. And, I mean, it could have been a span of maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. But then they got me up there, and he starts explaining to me, this guy's name is Ryan, which I'll never forget because it's the same name as my brother. He starts to explain to me what they're going to do and what they had decided, and then that's when they brought him in, and so he got to sit in there with me. He was kind-hearted soul that brought me my contact case and stuff, because I know from experience that you don't want to wear contacts if you go into surgery because your eyes get super dried out.
Remembered because she felt, from previous experience, she had forgotten this here, I think, and she always felt naked without her collar on. And I remember to grab it, too, because it was just randomly on the counter in the kitchen, which was out of place.
The reason it was sitting in the counter in the kitchen is because while I was mowing, it was hot, and it leaves marks on my neck when it gets hot and sweaty.
But
so
it's still
I'm
just
taking
one
it
of
off.
those things where it's just
Yeah,
weird enough to see off of you that I'm like,
I was extremely grateful because that was not on the list of things to grab for me.
It was a bonus.
It was definitely not on the forefront of my mind at that point. So I mean, this is a big deal for me, and to have it on and be able to have it, it meant a lot. Of course, as soon as I put it on, I kind of had to take it back off because I had to take out all my jewelry just in case.
All of her. So, I mean, she didn't have a shit ton. I've seen people with even more, but
Which
she
normally
still
I did have more, but
had to take a few things off.
yeah, I had to take out my gauges. I had to take out my cartilage piercings. I had to take this off. Like, they could not have anything metal on me because if, while I'm in surgery, they have to use the defibrillators for any type of reason, it burned whatever part has metal. So I had to make sure I was completely metal free.
Yeah.
But he brought my contact cases and my glasses as well. So I had the nurses take the thing, because obviously I'm not walking at this point. Wheel me over there from the bed so that I could wash my hands. They ended up giving me washcloths with like the soap and stuff on it so I could wash my hands, because I hadn't had a chance to wash my hands or anything else since before when we were at the house. So I still had all that stuff from mowing, all the blood, everything. Like, there was no actual blood on my hands, but it was still a cross-contamination. I wasn't going to put that in my eyes. Same thing with hand sanitizer. If I would have used that, this particles stay on your skin. And if any of you have, like, accidentally touched your mouth or anything like that after using hand sanitizer, you know that that stays. You can still taste it. So I didn't feel like burning the shit out of my eyes either. But took out my contacts, got my glasses on, and then next thing I know, they're like, oh, yep, we're ready to go. I'm like, oh, okay. So got to say goodbye to him before they took him down to, I'm assuming, the waiting area.
Yeah, it was one of those, it wasn't called waiting room, but it was basically, I've seen him, in a movie perspective, I always seen him as this is the area where you go to wait for the bad news. Because it's private rooms that have that glass frost kind of thing on them. So I was waiting there forever. I mean, I was so exhausted. I was like, I gotta stay awake. I was doing this. And the people in the room, in one of these same little privacy room things next to me, it was an older couple, and they had their TV on. It was just, I don't know what they were watching, but it was like the lights were just flickering in there. I'm like, is someone having a party in the other room?
Oh, that was another thing. I'm trying to get my mind off the pain and trying to turn on the TV in the triage area. It wouldn't turn on.
Oh, yeah,
it would turn like green and then shut completely off. Like, it wouldn't even turn on.
Right.
It was not a fun experience.
So anyway, so I was waiting there. I'm like, am I forgotten about? Did I miss an instruction here? They did call me once, said that so far it's doing great. I was like, okay, well, thank you, and then it was about another hour that went by. So at least about 2.5 hours or so, or consider it the length of the Titanic movie by James Cameron. She was literally, I mean, I was waiting for her to be done. It was the operation or procedure, surgery, whatever they were doing with it. And then finally, one of the gentlemen that I'd met in the operation area, that was one of the surgeons, I guess, came down, found me, and told me that it went well. Said that there's basically like rods or something that they had to put in to kind of hold things together. He talked to me about how much she obliterated and pulverized some of the skeletal system areas and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And kind of gave me kind of a brief early synopsis of what was to come next in terms of like outpatient, especially in these now 2 weeks that we know the clock has started now, for where we got to check, make sure things are still healing good, because this is the sensitive time. And then once she goes back, and we'll get to that in a little bit later in chapter 3 of this 3-part thing. So this is the surgery at hospital to the hospital part. So of two, and the first one was the accident. This one's the hospital and the emergency as it's happening post surgery, and then more so post surgery, going home, recovery, which will be the next option, the next part of this 3-part series. Anyway, so and Zach says in the chat here, wow, the laceration is all across the bottom of the foot.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty bad, isn't it?
So the complete damage was I broke. This is all on my left foot. So I broke the 3 smaller toes, 2 of which I broke in 2 different places. And then I didn't break the big toe or the one next to it, but the laceration was so deep that, while I was waiting for them to bandage stuff up and they were checking the blood flow in my toe and stuff, I'm literally watching my toe go like this with every heartbeat. It was gross, it was painful, and I did a hell of a lot of damage. The rods that they have in my foot, or splints, whatever they call them, he has them in all 3 broken toes to keep them in place so that they can heal properly, and then he had to kind of ghetto rig my other toes because I'd done so much damage to the skeletal system that my bigger toe is actually going to end up being a little bit shorter, just because they kind of had to smush it down in there to make it so I didn't have to lose a toe. Yeah.
And again, at the beginning of this, so back in chapter 1, as we'll call it, the prognosis, the Macomb thing, that she was going to be losing toes. I was just like, oh, it sounded like, it was conveyed to me secondhand. I wasn't in there during the initial conversation, but it sounded like it was just like a done deal. It's how it's kind of told to me, is like it's just losing her
that's
toes.
when I had asked the doctor, I said, so there's no saving them, and she told me no. So, yeah. So
that's why second opinion, especially in the medical field, is very important.
Yeah. It's been a long 36
That's
hours.
why I was so glad that Springfield got a look at her, because, oh, Lord. That's scary, though, isn't it? And you go to one place, and they do things this way, and another place it's done better, or more positively, we should say.
Now,
it's scary.
The last thing I remember before actually waking up from the surgery was them putting this mask on me and telling me to breathe, and it felt like trying to breathe through a straw, where I felt like I was actually suffocating from trying to breathe through this thing. But, eventually I got knocked out, and they did a fantastic job. I mean, I can't see what they did because I've got a nice boot thing on.
We'll
it's
show that
splint.
too. I'll move the camera towards the end of the chapter 3.
But I got to keep all my toes. I got to keep
that
everything.
Was a big. I was like, oh.
I was almost in tears at the fact that I was able to keep them, and I was not going to be more like my dad than I already am.
She seemed prepared and ready at first when she heard that.
I had to mentally prepare myself for if I come out of the surgery and I'm missing toes. Because the worst thing that I could have done was been like, okay, it's going to be okay. I'm not going to lose anything, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing I know, I wake up and I'm missing those toes. I've heard, and I don't know how many people have seen the movie or the show House, but there is an episode in there where his neighbor is kind of an asshole. And he had lost his hand or some fingers or something in an explosion from being in war. And he had that phantom pain in his hand that he didn't even have anymore. And House had to, have a mirror box thing to make it seem like he released whatever the hell he was holding on to so that that phantom pain went away. So keeping that in mind, and mind you, I don't know why it had popped in my head, but I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I'm going to end up with phantom pain of having toes there, and they're not actually there if I don't mentally prepare myself for I may not have them anymore. So.
Yeah. So, I thanked him he even kind of demonstrated a little bit about, some of the points he was making. Because the surgeon that was telling me this, he even removed his shoe to show,
You didn't tell me that
He
part.
gave me an illustration of what would happen and a little bit of the future to come. But he was focused more on what had happened, and he kind of took his shoe off, and he was like, okay, so this part right here, he's doing this and all this. It's like a just visual display. Anyway, so we talked a little bit about that, and I thanked him quite a bit, and he said, "Yep, you can go up there a little bit," but he didn't really tell me. This is where I was unclear. I was like, "Should I go up there now?" Because he said basically, "Well, have a good night." He said, "Tell me bye," as he was walking out. So I sat down there a little bit longer in this room. Didn't hear anything, and I'm like, "Well, does that mean she's in her room now?"
No.
I didn't know. Yeah, there's this, and Zach, you might appreciate this, because I called it the in-between, or it could be the upside down, I guess, if you want to call it. She was in this period of the in-between, as I called it, so post-surgery, but it's like a recovery set where she's waking up, they're doing some checks, I guess, making sure of things before they move her into her actual room.
They had to make sure that I was awake and cognitive and all that fun stuff, and that there were no other complications from the anesthesia before they could move me to my room.
So this was the only time during the process where I'm pretty sure, like, her whereabouts, I was the most foggy on. I wasn't sure where she was.
Yeah. The best way I can describe this pain, because I didn't say it earlier, when your foot is asleep and it's to the point of being so much asleep that it hurts and you have to move your foot, otherwise it's going to be really, really painful when you stand on it. That is the feeling that I've had. That, like, even right now, like, my foot feels like it's asleep. And I know that if I move my feet or my toes, it's a bad thing, especially having the splints in it throughout my entire foot, and the fact that 3 of them are broken. So you don't necessarily want to move broken fingers or toes or anything like that as it is. That's why you see me adjusting a lot, is because my leg is hurting. I did take my medication, but it's not as effective, I guess, right now as it had been. It's definitely not as effective as the fentanyl was. When I could tell it was working.
Seemed like it came through, though, like when you were hurting in the car, at least. It gave you some relief for that.
And I think part of the reason it was hurting so long in the car was because I'm supposed to keep it elevated, which is, I've got the little piano bench thing.
Yeah, I brought that in from the music room. So
that I could keep it elevated, but...
Well, Victorian cast iron bench.
It's going to be one of those, when I lay down, I have to keep it kind of propped up so that it's... Like when you're pregnant and you have to have your feet higher than your heart rate or your heart, so that it kind of helps with the blood flow and all that fun stuff. Since I'm sitting up right now, it's not as effective, but it feels better being sat up than it does if I were to have it laying on the ground. I'm not allowed to put any pressure on it in any way, shape, or form. The most I can do is if I need to rest my heel on, like, the floor or something, I can do that. But besides that, I cannot put any pressure on it whatsoever. So that's going to be for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So this kind of goes in chapter 3, part 3, and final part here. So I am, I kind of, then I actually include this in the vlog where I'm, like, lost. Going up the elevators, and then I'm getting told one thing. The nurses don't even seem to know what's going on. Then I'm going back down the elevators. And then it wasn't until by fluke I ran into one of the male surgeons. It was one of the 2 guys that were there. And so he knew me and knew my face and my long hair and all that. And
I didn't even tell you.
The guy
who brought me up to the waiting room for the surgery part, as he was leaving, I had told him, I'm like, so if you see a Colombian guy with some longer hair that seems kind of out of place and lost, send him my way.
That's funny.
Because he knew that I was waiting for you and that you got sent to an actual room.
Yeah.
So I I wasn't sure if they were going to send you back to triage or what they were going to do, so I wanted to make sure that you made your way.
So if you see a lost alternative emo guy, long hair that seems out of place, it's an exotic look. Send him, then you know it's the guy. Because none of them.
He belongs to me.
Because it's funny how none of them, nurses, custodians, surgeons, doctors, none of them asked me, he's like, do you need help, sir? Or looked at me like, what are you doing here?
Are you out of place?
Yeah, that didn't happen. But instead, they looked at me more so like, they knew me, and it's kind of funny. They're like, are you looking for, one of them even was like, Sasha, oh, you're looking for her, right? She's out of, it's like, oh, it's
they
like
I
became like known. I don't know if we became this like power couple in this hospital. I don't know what.
Well, probably with how many times I was asking for you, it might have something to do with it.
Maybe. I don't know. Something happened because they knew me, the way I looked and everything. Of course, it's no discreetness with it, but it's kind of funny how it seems like it's kind of like the Cheers shows, like where everybody knows my name.
Now,
I've never been there before.
One thing we didn't mention in chapter 1 is while I was mowing, I was wearing a pair of shorts and a shirt that was fairly see-through because it was hot as fuck outside, and I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, some of the drivers, Zach, that were driving by the emo mansion were slowing down, and then we figured out why. Her shirt was a little see-through, especially when she was sweating.
But it was a dark-colored shirt, so you really...
Yeah,
you couldn't really tell, but you could kind of
A
tell.
little boobage there, a little less for the imagination. So this is what she then had to go to the hospital in. So go ahead.
But, no, that was all I was saying, because you were talking about searching through the hospital for me.
Yeah, so I kind of joked, again, my humor during this situation was like, did they give you any kind of insurance discounts or anything like that? Because, I mean, you gave them a show,
Now, and even, mind you, when they had me put on this hospital gown, the lady was, like, trying to be proper for me, and she's like, I'll block you, so blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here like, I don't give a fuck. Just take it off and let me put on this gown. Let's get on with this process. I am not very conservative. I wear fairly low-cut shirts most of the time.
She's very nudist, naturalism kind of nudist.
That's a more recent thing with being more comfortable with my body and stuff like that.
That's good.
Yes, but it was one of those things where at that point I really didn't give a shit who saw my boobs. They're fucking boobs. All females have,
even
90%
males,
of females have them.
Even males have them, and those of us unfortunate that grow them out enough, they're called boobs.
And
Chesticles.
there's at one point or another that
Chesticles, Zach.
There's at one point or another where they've seen a pair of tits. So, I mean, they're just getting a quick show before I put on this fucking gown. And it was another ongoing thing that he should have brought my arm warmers. I was expecting him to.
Right, yeah. So, anyway, we looked at a place anyway because we still dressed alternative. It is one of the first night, the first part of it in chapter 1, going to the Macomb, because of the situation just happening, I wore shorts. And I don't really wear shorts out in public very often. So that was one of those one-offs.
I think you were even wearing your vest I don't know if you were still wearing it when we left. But I know that when it happened, you were wearing your workout.
Yeah, then I came in when I grabbed your bag. I switched out and I put on the shirt. But I didn't have time. I didn't worry about the shorts. But I still had my ponytail up. And then that's another thing. I don't go out in public very much with my hair up like that.
I think there's only been one time that I've seen you wear it up. And that was, we were going to Walmart, and I was trying to figure out what was different, and then I realized that you had your man bun going
So if you see those pictures that we did release from the emergency room in the surgical area, no, I didn't cut my hair or anything like that. It's pulled back. So I know some people are like, what? And because it's not seen like that normally. I do that when I work out.
Yeah.
And if it's hot and humid, or if I'm doing outside work, I'll usually do that, or wear a bandana, like Rambo kind of thing. Zach says, luckily no ghost toes happened. Yeah, exactly. Haunted by ghost toes.
Phantom pain, like I said.
Zach says, no worries, just half a birthday suit. I'm sure they're used to it. Well,
Exactly, which was my mindset. Like, there's times where there's traumatic shit going on where they had to cut off my sock.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're used to having to cut clothes and stuff off where they're gonna see tits, they're gonna see ass, they're gonna see whatever, and even we'll get into this a little bit later. But when I had to walk my happy way to a commode to pee,
Right.
they got to see a little bit more of me.
Yeah. So, and Zach says, did this happen yesterday? Technically, my birthday, too. This is why I celebrate it in October, because things happen on May 18th, like Mount St. Helens. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this kind of just, again, I apologize. I didn't, I was the one that didn't say on your timeline, happy birthday. For you, I think that was your actual birthday.
Yeah.
But I think you go, if I remember right, you go more off of your October one anyway. So hopefully there's no hurt feelings. I mean, everything that considered what happened here, we were distracted. And Facebook was horrible about giving notifications.
Well,
I
like
would have
I
forgot
said, I'm fairly certain on his Facebook it shows his October birthday, not his.
Right. Well, that would explain why I didn't get a notification. Because usually if I get a notification, it's from Facebook about birthdays, because it usually does that. But if you have it set for your October one, that would explain it away so I don't feel as bad. But happy birthday, Zach.
Yes, happy birthday, Zach. And
belated.
And while, yes, this event did start on your birthday, it continued on to my sister-in-law's birthday, because her birthday's today. So it was one of those just surrounding people's birthday kind of things. Because my surgery and everything, I don't know what time it actually started. I know that it was about 4 o'clock in the morning when I was actually awake and in my room. And finally got to see him again, which it was a hell of a lot longer for him on that end than it was for me.
So going back to that part, yes, the waiting. This was the worst of the waiting. It was like I was waiting and waiting and waiting. Let me find the clip here.
Now, mind you, at this point I was knocked out, so
it's hard to see right there, but yeah, I'm just waiting in this room that she's supposed to be in, and I'm just like, okay, what's going on here? What, just waiting and more waiting. So that was going on there. So if I wasn't waiting in this room, not knowing exactly what was going on, I was walking around empty halls. Still not knowing exactly what was going on. So either scenario wasn't the greatest, but, so,
now,
go ahead.
Mind you, by the time I got back to the room and I was actually awake, I was starving, and the cafeteria was closed. So they brought me some saltine crackers, a thing of Jell-O, a thing of applesauce, which was unsweetened, and I did not
Which I would have had that, but that's all right.
Yeah, you could have had it, because it...
No sugar!
Yeah, I didn't want it. Some ice cream, and the only drinks they could really give me was this ice water stuff or their knockoff version of Sprite, which was my go-to drink when I wasn't able to order from the cafeteria.
Yeah, and Zach says, yes, yesterday was my actual birthday, but I have Facebook set for October. Okay. That makes sense then. And I wasn't expecting anything like that, emo bro. Okay. Makes me feel better, but given the circumstances, we had a lot going on here, so yeah, I'm glad that you're not mad at us for forgetting or not saying.
Well, Zach's pretty understanding and considering the situation, even if he did recognize this birthday more than his other one, I think.
Yeah, because the October one, honestly, would be harder to forget because her birthday, my mom's birthday, Gothmas. May's just kind of lost in the combobulation of, in the normie sense of things, weddings, graduations, mowing accidents,
Yeah, we're gonna add that to the list.
Things like that. So yeah, no, I don't blame you. I would have preferred an October birthday too, to be honest. So I hate my actual one. It's in December. It always got overshadowed by Christmas.
My mom's is 2 days before Christmas.
And I think that's a part of why I just kind of disassociated from Christmas and went Gothmas. Anyway, sidetrack, squirrel moment. But
I have a lot of those, so don't feel bad.
So finally, they wheel her in. I I finally see her. She's awake, cognizant. She recognizes my face and everything. Because I wasn't sure how it was going to be. I didn't know. Because I've seen people, especially if they're very loopy from the drugs they get, they're... Who knows?
So my daughter had to have her tonsils taken out this year, right? The first time that she's ever been on the anesthesia, when she woke up, she's looking at me and she's doing the whole "I love you, Mom" and blah blah blah. She looks over at her dad and starts crying because he scared her. I have video. And I wish that I would have taken or started recording that a little sooner, but at that time I had to be the mom and make sure my kid was okay, even though it was absolutely hilarious for me that she was scared of her dad's face. I still had to make sure that she was okay, and then it was hilarious, but I had luckily been through anesthesia before, so I was fully aware of the possibilities and stuff like that. Luckily, I don't have that same reaction that she did. And quite honestly, I had gotten to see her when she was actually in the recovery part because we just took her home afterwards. But yeah. Oh, yeah. Another thing I got was a tetanus shot on top of two different types of antibiotics beforehand. This was back in chapter 1 because I forgot about it. I'm allergic to penicillin. So they had to come up with alternative antibiotics for me to be on this entire time because penicillin gives me a very adverse reaction. So instead of being able to go through just one bag of penicillin, I had to go through 2 different bags of 2 separate medications just to make sure that I wasn't getting an infection or anything else, which is one thing that we had to keep an eye on over the next 2 weeks up until I go for this checkup, which I have to schedule on Monday.
Yeah, it's I was gonna say with that, so she recognized me because my grandfather, technically, when he was in the hospital for something, I can't remember if it was one of his heart attacks or whatever, but they had him on something and he was seeing colored, not just regular, but colored he skunks.
LSD.
So he was on something real good. I guess I don't know.
Where was that for me? Shit. I would have loved to see colors or hear colors and see music.
Right. So it was just one of those funny things. So I wasn't sure the state of where she was going to be. If she was going to recognize me, or if she's going to be very like, very like loopy or funny. I didn't know.
I don't think I was super loopy.
You were cognizant enough that you could carry on a cohesive If anything, she would kind of be like dozing in and out, but that was about it. She seemed very aware and alert considering, what happened. And I don't know if there's too many times other than maybe the time when, because they did put you full under when they worked in your foot.
Yeah.
So during that, with the exception of that, I don't know how much of the rest of it that she was foggy on.
And that's part of the reason why I would prefer to be the one in surgery than the waiting, because the waiting takes forever in a day. The surgery, you're zonked out, and then next thing you know, you wake up and you're done. And you don't know how long time has passed because time's non-existent at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was ready to go into surgery and get that part over with.
Yeah.
But no, I don't remember a whole lot about that. I remember you needing to come back home, and I wasn't very comfortable, with you going home after being up like that and it being in the middle of the night.
She was still worried about me more than herself.
And the fact that I didn't want you being alone with your thoughts, especially seeing how you felt really guilty for it, even though it wasn't your fault. It was nobody's fault. You had no blame in it. But I knew that you were feeling that guilt and stuff, so I didn't want you worrying about that being by yourself.
At the same time, she mentions not just everyone would, which is true. Not just everyone would have came to that far in the middle of the night to meet her at the hospital.
And to wait.
Yeah, I didn't leave. I waited.
Having to sit there and wait for somebody to go through surgery and stuff like that. A lot of people wouldn't have done it, especially We're very,
but
very
you
good
didn't
friends.
know anyone here, so it's like, of course I'm gonna stay through the whole thing, even if
But there's
I'm up
people
for
that
over 28 hours.
There's people that I know that I could have known them my entire fucking life and they still wouldn't have stayed. Even if I had nobody else around, they still wouldn't have stayed.
I had nothing better to do, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why you stayed. Had nothing to do with the fact you were worried. So.
Well, yeah.
I know. I'm teasing.
And not hearing, especially during this time in the story of this timeline of it, not knowing really, it was probably the least out of the information I was. So
and
the
I
good
wasn't
surgeon
awake to text him and let him know what was going on.
Because I'm like, did it go good? Her toes are good. Everything. I mean, because the doctor, had told me what he did, and it indicated that she wasn't losing any toes. But that silence of not knowing what was going on, that seemed like it dragged on, started having me kind of wondering, and it was kind of like, complications? Something else unforeseen come up? So...
Yeah, I had the feeling that your anxiety was going to go through the roof because when somebody's actually in surgery, you're not getting a whole lot of information. When Jordan had to get her tonsils out, we didn't have a whole lot of information. But I had my Switch, so I was sitting there playing that just to give me something to do, which, by the way, do me a favor when we're done with this and bring that down here for me.
Oh, what is it?
My Switch.
Switch, yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a few times, there's going to be some times where it's part of working out her, and we'll get more into this towards the end of this third installment, but we have stairs in the mansion, and she already has a way to tackle that, but it's a good exercise to rehabilitate, and minus, just the walking around and stuff, but in addition to that, kind of working that too to kind of keep that strength going, so she's not laying down all day. So we'll get to that.
I'm good. I just stretch it back out.
So anyway, so it was the waiting. Then finally, so they rolled her in the room, talked to her, hug her, and she even wanted a few emo kisses. So went ahead did that, and she had her sense of humor. Every once in a while, she would do one of these very long, like, eyes would go shut. And I'm like, you awake? And and I'm still talking to her. And she's like, yeah, you're good. She'd just kind of, do one of these. But she'd still be up. Because I knew she'd be bummed if I just had left, if I let her fall asleep. I wanted her to also be cognizant when I was leaving. So I had to go back to Emo Mansion, grab a few things. I wanted to grab a change of clothes and some other stuff too, for not just for her but for myself too.
Well, you'd done that on the way.
Because I already brought you, yeah. So for me, I was
the clothing that he brought me, because he doesn't know my wardrobe.
I didn't know how she had things organized.
Yeah, and the shorts that he brought were actually my swim shorts, which I'm actually wearing right now because the other option were sweatpants, but I had the feeling it was going to be hot, and trying to get sweatpants on, even though they're loose ones, over my foot was not appealing to me in any way, shape, or form. And so the shirt he did good on. But it was just kind of funny having to rock my swim shorts when I was actually finally able to get dressed and everything else. So.
Yeah.
And of course, because I don't have my socks all matched up, they're sitting in a bag up there because I had lazy moments when it came to I need to do this, but I really don't want to, especially with how much I work. He ended up bringing me a pair of his socks, which I didn't even end up wearing because the hospital gave me ones that have grippers on the bottom, and considering the fact that I was walking around on hardwood floors, kind of needed those grippers to be able to not slip and fall.
Right, yeah, because I could not find her socks for the life of me. So I ended up substituting, grabbing one of mine. I'm like, who cares? It's men's socks. I don't think she'll worry.
No.
But yeah, fairness, they didn't have the grip thing on them. So it would have been better anyway. So that she wore the hospital ones, which she still has on right now on her good right foot. So. So there's that. But I was thinking, I was like, well, I'll just pack one of my socks in, because.
It was the thought that counted. And I appreciated him bringing stuff. And I'd asked him to grab my charger. I guess I didn't necessarily explain very well where it was, because he ended up grabbing the one that's meant to charge my brick rather than the...
Yeah, this is my logical thinking. Is like, I knew she had an iPhone before, and then her new phone, current phone is an iPhone. She had 2 iPhones. What the hell is an Android charger even doing in the mansion? Well, that was my initial thought.
My brick charges with an Android cord, so...
There it is. So I grabbed the one that I thought was right. I was like 99% sure. I was like, oh, that's it, because it looked kind of newish, like a new phone would have as an accessory or whatever. So I was like, oh, good, I got this. I get it there, and it's like, no, I'm like, oh, fuck.
Now, mind you, by the time we had reached hospital number 2, my phone was at 33%.
Right.
So to be able to stay in contact with him and my family and everything else, I was like, I need my phone to charge.
That makes sense.
So,
luckily, one of the nurses or one of the staff there did have an iPhone charger.
Was a kind-hearted soul and let me use it.
Let her borrow it. So yeah, that worked.
And so when he ended up leaving to come back to the mansion, I wanted to stay awake until I knew he was home, make sure he was safe, especially knowing that there were deer and stuff out. Let me tell you how much I failed in the staying awake part, but my body automatically woke.
Because around 6 you woke up. Because
it was 6 o'clock exactly.
Texted me.
And now, mind you, that's not a normal time for me to wake up. I'm normally up by about 3:15 in the morning for work. So it wasn't like this is the time that I'm used to waking up. My body automatically did it. It was I woke up kind of with the start, like, oh shit, I fell asleep. And first thing I did was texted him, see if he had made it home yet. Because I couldn't remember how far away
I think there's a
was.
miscalculation in her mind about how far away I am from Springfield, because originally she said something about it's an hour away. Like, no, it's closer to 90 minutes. So I was halfway home, but I made a pit stop at the Walmart, and they were opening, Walmart in Beardstown opens at 6 a.m., and there's a couple things I wanted to grab, including fresh and replenishment items for the first aid kit. That became a priority in that instant. So I arrived at that Walmart about 5 minutes before they opened. I seen the guy, I'm assuming leadership, that's how it was at Target when I worked there. I was kind of walking
had to unlock the doors.
Front of the door, had unlocked the doors. Right. He did it right at 5:59, basically. I mean, it was close enough. And then the doors open, and then I seen the crowd, like gradual people going in. But that's my saying, is that's the best time to go to Walmart, because I hate that place anyway, is right when they open, when there's like nobody there yet, or after 8 p.m. when there's less people there.
And I have my own love-hate relationship with Walmart, because I worked there for several years.
So there's that. So anyway, so that manager guy or lead or whatever opened the doors, and then people started trailing in. I went in there, grabbed gauze and some new unexpired disinfectant stuff. Some stuff from my first aid kit. They had some ears on them that were suggestive of maybe should have replaced this soon. But hey, it still did the trick.
Yeah, the disinfectant he used on my foot was
apparently
old, expired. But the way I saw it and it
still worked.
I explained it to him. It probably just had time to ferment, so it was a little stronger than what it normally would have been, which was probably a good thing. Because we haven't really mentioned yet, but him pouring the disinfectant on my foot is honestly probably what saved my foot. Because it gave it a chance to make sure that there was no infection and stuff building up while we waited this all happened at 5:45. Okay? Yeah. So it was from 5:45 up until 11 at night minimum when I actually went into surgery.
Yeah, because the comb visit doesn't really,
Yeah, so a good almost 5-6 hours that I was waiting for anything to happen
That
to my
helped
foot for them
keep
to
it.
clean it out.
That bought us time, I think.
So yeah, that definitely helped, because had he not done that, chances are very, very good that their secondary option of cleaning it out and then having to wait a couple days would have been the option they ended up having to go with.
And I'm just vindicated, and just it validated, and helped me, because I'd asked, and she'll witness to this, I'd asked several medical staff, process I did, is there anything else I could have done? And they didn't give me any kind of constructive criticism. Just said that what I did was what I needed to do in that time of need. So that made me feel a little better, even though I still felt horrible, but it made me feel better, because if my actions were doing that, helped her keep all of her, then that's,
And see, my thank you on the way to the hospital was validated right there. Because you told me not to thank you just yet, but I had good reason to.
So, and the fact that we had in the Paranormal Endeavors first aid kit, we have the liquid version of disinfectant stuff, which in this case came in handy, because she was saying before in previous stuff that she's experienced, it was always the wipes. And that would have, oh god, that probably would have made it even worse.
Honestly,
for me to apply it, because I knew I'd be hurting her by touching it.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us would have done it. We wouldn't have been able to. One, because of how much pain it would have caused. I would have been screaming. Like, just them touching my toes was putting me in such agonizing pain, it's not even funny. So
yeah.
having that was definitely I couldn't have had anybody better there with me when this happened.
So, anyway, what do you think where we're at?
You went to Walmart, you got stuff to replenish.
Oh yeah, so I got to replenish the first aid kit, and that's at the same time that she was checking to see if I was home yet. And I was like, well, I'm halfway there. And then by the time I got home, I let her know I was there, and then I just passed out. But I set my alarm for, it was like 4.5 hours, if that, maybe 4 hours. So I'm still on fumes right now. And
we're going to sleep good tonight.
and especially her, because she had a hospital bed last night, and that's not the same thing. So now she's at the emo mansion, where I'm sure, probably sleep in till noon. She's gonna be like you, Zach, where you sleep in till like noon or 1 p.m.
I don't think I'll sleep quite that late, because I'm gonna end up having to wake up in the middle of the night and take another pain pill.
Yeah.
Because it's actually kind of really hurting right now.
I always had to say that though, because Zach slept like I did when I was a teen. He sleeps like a teenager.
That's how I slept when I used to work thirds.
I used to be able to sleep like that.
No, actually, when I worked thirds, I had one kid that was in school, the other one was an infant, so I took naps when they took naps, and that was all the sleep that I got.
Yeah.
So I like working thirds, because I can sleep more during the day and get stuff done that I need to, but at the same time, it's like I was not getting much sleep at that point. When Jordan hit about 2, I was only getting naps when she took naps, because her dad worked so late in the day that by the time he got home from work, I had to leave for work. And so there were days where I was only running on like maybe an hour or 2 of sleep. And then when Jordan stopped taking naps altogether, I was pregnant with Emery. And it's a completely different story and off topic, but she got up from her nap, and she heard the neighbor's grandkids out playing, and decided that she wanted to go play with them. I was sleeping, and she had enough sense to change from her big girl undies into a pull-up and went across the street. So I woke up from a nap to my kid not being in bed and my front door being wide open.
Yeah.
And I was pregnant as hell, and so I was sleeping in a tank top and a pair of underwear, and went across the street like that. Now, mind you, we had just moved into this house, so I hadn't even had a chance to meet the neighbor. So his first view of me was a pregnant woman coming across the street to get her kid in a pair of underwear and a tank top. Randy will never forget that, I'm sure.
Walmart people, that's kind of what it reminds me of.
Well, at that point, I was just relieved that she was okay and nobody had kidnapped her, because that was where my first thought process was. So needless to say, I, as much as I loved third shift and I loved those hours, I'm glad that I'm not on them anymore.
Yeah. And Zach works overnights better because the sun is too hot and bothers him. So I know third shift, and then coming here to try to be up to associate with me when I work dayside. It can be jarring for him, I think. So.
I need to ice this after.
Okay.
This, by the way.
So rest of the third story here as we're wrapping up. So basically, and when I'm back home here, I'm finishing the job that we'd started. I mowed the rest of the yard, including back in the space where this accident happened, which I took. I forced myself through it because it was still a little bit of the flashbacks happening, but I was also looking for a downed what was it? Earbud that I guess she lost sometime in that process.
Yeah, sometime in between when the accident happened and getting to the hospital, I realized I only had one earbud in my pocket.
Yeah. So I looked when I first got home from the hospital at it was after 7, or it was about 7-ish when I got back here. And went back there because there was enough daylight, and I scoured the area, including the area where the wagon then met where she was. I did not find one. And then when I went back, so come in, and I pass out, and then I wake up, and then finish the mowing, and I'm back in that area, and in particular, I'm like mowing by halves. So I'm kind of going over the area where I seen where she cut off with the push mower, and only halfway in under the tractor. So kind of mowing it like that, and put it in reverse, and mow very slowly because I'm looking over too. I'm looking like this, like I'm doing it. Also seeing the area of the kind of the blood patch of grass where her foot was,
which is now obliterated, thank God.
Which, yeah, now and then once we get a few more rains, that will be gone, and there won't be any evidence of anything happening back there.
Okay. My leg is it's getting that feeling of being asleep.
This is one thing maybe we should have talked about. She had this several times. About where it falls asleep and then you're trying to move it and then it hurts.
Yeah, it's going to be a long process, and it's probably going to be a very painful process. And even though I took pain meds before we even started this, I already am well aware that one, if I don't have it elevated high enough, it hurts. And while I do have it elevated right now, I'm having to adjust it because there's a pain going up my leg.
And so we're at 2 hours here, so we can change positions.
It's trying to find a comfortable spot for it that is a challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just gonna be a process.
And this is longer than I thought, but this is the full story. So this way, if anyone asks you what happened, you can send them to this 2-hour video. This is the full in-depth, pretty detailed.
Yeah, and like I said, I already had done a live Facebook video from my hospital bed to explain what was going on, so that nobody else had any questions. They got the story. Now, mind you, I still had a friend of mine. I love her to death. Her name is Chelsea. That sent me a personal text saying she couldn't really watch the video because she was at work, and asked me what happened. I'm like, all right, well, long story short, my foot got in a fight with a lawnmower. To get the entire story, you're going to have to watch the
lawnmower, and the mower won.
I won the war. I lost that battle, but I won the war. I have all my toes and shit. So, so while he's now mind you, while he's at the emo mansion getting caught up on everything here, and I'm extremely grateful that he finished doing the lawn, because I think hearing a lawnmower right now would bring back.
I wanted it done. Yeah.
it would bring back some traumatic thought processes at this point.
Hence the delay. Why it coming? I wanted to just finish the lawn and not have it be worry again. Probably until the point where you need at least to go back to check up.
Yeah.
Then the lawn would become an issue again. But I didn't. It's just too soon. I didn't want the mower sound. I didn't know where your trauma status was going to be, PTSD, etc. She even doesn't want to walk back in that area anytime soon.
I don't want to walk back in that area. I don't want to function with a lawnmower anytime soon. And I already told him if I do end up using a push mower again, because eventually I'm going to have my own place and have to mow my own lawn, it will be one that has a bag on the back of it where that's where the fucking grass goes. And if it starts to slow down, stall, whatever, I know that that thing is full and I need to empty it versus having this shit again. Ever again. I'm good. And he's already grounded me from using the push mower ever again here. So
yeah, I'm just like, yeah, that's not.
I'm okay with that grounding. I will gladly take that one. But so while he's getting everything ready here at the mansion, I had Charmed playing at the hospital because that was one of the only shows that I found that I would actually enjoy watching. I love Charmed. So I had
you had
that.
Monk on when I left.
Yeah, Monk was on because that was what they had that I saw right away. I've never really been into Monk. It's more of a if there's nothing else to watch. So that's why that was on at that point. But I had since I had already woken up and they started breakfast, I went ahead and ordered breakfast and they told me it'd be about an hour, so I was going to get more sleep. But of course that didn't happen because the physical therapist and the, what word did I use? Occupational therapist.
Yeah.
They come in, and this is after they've done the vitals and changing of staff and stuff. They come in and they want to show me how to use this walker thing that I'm going to be using for the next several weeks. And mind you, they had just given me pain medication before this, so I'm already tired. But I took this opportunity to be able to walk on my own without having to have somebody pull this commode thing out because I wasn't allowed to go in the bathroom by myself. They special ordered a commode because, like, as soon as I got done with the surgery and everything, I'm like, I've got to pee. Like, let me go pee. So they special ordered the commode. I had to use that out in the middle of the fucking room, like, a couple of times before I finally got to use this walker. So I went in there, I peed, and then they take me out to the hallway to get a feel for using it, and they took me through where the steps are and are showing me, you know, the best way to get up these steps is to sit down and kind of push yourself up one step at a time. I looked at him and I'm like, honestly, chances are I'll crawl up these steps. Kind of like how I did in the yard to get close enough where when he brought the wagon out, I could use that to kind of hop my way. So I gave them an example, and now, mind you, I'm wearing a hospital gown, and that thing doesn't like to stay on very well, so they got a nice view of my ass.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing on underneath this gown. They had taken my shorts and everything else, I think either right before surgery or while I was in the trauma area. I don't remember. But yeah, I had nothing on. So they got a nice view. And then when I obviously was coming down the steps, I can't go backwards like that, not without risking hitting my foot. So I did turn around, sat on my ass, and they had brought a sheet out to put on the steps so I wasn't sitting on a dirty step, to scoop my ass down so I could get up, and got the walker and pulled myself up and everything all by myself. Like, they called me their all-star pupil because it had been less than 12 hours since I had surgery, and I was using this thing like a pro.
So discharge was likely.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gets us to just recent.
That is the only reason that they agreed to discharge me tonight rather than tomorrow morning, was because I did so well on that thing that they felt like they didn't need to keep me overnight to make sure that I was okay with using this thing, and to the point where they're not even going to send somebody out to the mansion for training me on it, basically.
Which I was happy about that.
Yeah,
we're not people person anyway, but you know. So, mind you, during this time, I'm completing some tasks here at home, taking care, because it's payday, ironically for both of us, by fluke, because she was supposed to be paid from her job on Thursday, but that's a whole other story. And so we got paid.
If there was even one little detail that was different, whether I had been able to go to Elkhart to see the girls, or if I'd gotten paid like I was supposed to, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
Because if my pay had hit like it was supposed to, I was going to take my car into town yesterday morning and get it fixed and then go to work. But because my paycheck didn't hit until today, it actually hit at like, I think it was on my page or on my thing by the time I got out of surgery. But if it would have hit, then I wouldn't have been here to have mowed or anything else, and none of this shit would have ever happened.
Same time, the ironic thing, because you can always do, and this is what I dealt with the suicide with Angela, you can always play these scenarios and just go nowhere with them, ultimately driving yourself crazy.
Well, yeah.
But it's like what you were saying, it's like everything happens for a reason.
And honestly, this entire scenario, me going through this and everything, and because we're doing a vlog out of it, ultimately it could save somebody else's fucking foot. So that's the way I'm kind of viewing it. That is my light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. Just because.
Because you gotta think, you gotta think there's gotta be a lesson out of this that had to have happened.
Yes, everything happens for a reason. And if me going through it, even though obviously I don't enjoy it,
well, no one does. I didn't enjoy this either.
I know, but it also builds character. It shows how strong you can be. I've got a higher pain tolerance than a lot of people do. This could have happened to somebody else and they would have completely fallen apart, or their body wasn't as apparently strong as mine is, and they wouldn't have had the sensation or the blood flow through their foot to be able to keep all their toes and shit. So
because I've been through traumatic experiences before, well, clearly I think that helped.
Yes.
Me be able to keep a level mind to a degree through this. So, yeah, to the discharge aspect then. So I'm out there mowing, then finishing, that part, and I get notification because the gas and the mower ran out. And so at that time I'm like, I'm going to check my phone, because at that time already a couple hours had probably gone by. And she's like, yep, they're ready. Because last I'd heard before I started mowing was that she didn't know yet when, but they're thinking today she could. So I was given the notice that today might be the day. That was the last I heard at the time when I started mowing, and then I finished mowing. Got that notification right towards the end, and then I had like 5 more minutes of mowing to do after I refilled the gas. Parked it, ran inside, changed of clothes, rinsed off to get the crud off of me, and then grabbed the phone charger, the correct one, because I wanted to redeem myself from the first time of getting the wrong one. And so grabbed that, went to then head to pick her up. Then we're there, and this is the part that another vlogging moment where I picked up the moment where she's being wheelchaired out. So I got that, and nice nurse, the new one that must have been dayside shift, or the new one, newbie and truly new nurse must have been.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't the new nurse. It was the doctor that was going to come in to fix my finger.
So, good. So so many people involved.
Side note, I've got a cyst that's on my finger, so when I'm grabbing my walker thing, it kind of pushes against it and it hurts. When we're at Walmart tomorrow, I'm going to actually see about getting something a little softer to hold on to, because the gripper thing on that sucks and it hurts.
Is that technically yours now?
Yeah, it's mine.
We should goth the shit out of it.
Yeah, that's why I said we got to decorate it.
We got to decorate it. All right.
But, so this doctor was going to come in and basically aspirate it, stick a needle in it, drain out whatever it is. But she is a brand new doctor and is playing by the rules because she doesn't want to get in trouble. So she didn't end up doing that. They also were going to refill my Vyvanse because my script was in Elkhart, which luckily my kids' dad picked it up. My daughter and I are on the same dosage for that, and her medication didn't refill until today. So he went ahead and picked up my dosage yesterday, gave her one so that she could have one for school, and sent mine out so that I'm going to be getting it here at the mansion and not have to drive to Elkhart for it. But Yeah, so she was going to refill that and wasn't able to do that. Luckily, even though my Medicaid and stuff is all based in Indiana, I guess either there's some way that they're able to still charge Indiana, even though Indiana doesn't really do across state, and I've dealt with that before. When I was in a car accident in Michigan, my sister and I were coming back from a concert, and a herd of deer decided to cross the road, and we hit at least 3 of them. And I had just been diagnosed with my thyroid cancer shit, so they took me to the hospital as a precaution. So I've got a hospital bill from that, and I've got an ambulance bill from that because Medicaid refused to cover it. And her insurance didn't cover third-party people in the vehicle or whatever they call it. So I don't know if I'm going to be charged for this entire thing or if they're going to be able to get Medicaid to cover it. They are working on getting me switched over to Illinois Medicaid, which I am very, very grateful for, especially seeing how I haven't had a chance to really get any mail here to even switch my driver's license over or anything yet. So for them to be taking that step willingly, because Indiana doesn't do that shit, it means a lot.
Well, it's Indiana, but that's...
Yeah,
anyway.
We're not going to go into the downside of living in Indiana. That's a whole another hours long conversation. But needless to say that when they called me up about the pain meds that they were sending me home with, they said after insurance, it was only going to cost me like $5. And they took my card information over the phone because obviously I was not making my happy ass down to the pharmacy to fill the script. So that alone kind of shows me that they were able to get some sort of Medicaid coverage for it. So I'm kind of waiting to see what that bill's going to look like or if I'm going to get one at all. So fingers crossed that, especially seeing how I'm trying to build my credit up so I can get an actual house and not have to rent anymore, that they were able to get it covered. So
yeah, so that's kind of the outcome of the right now it's still ongoing, but the billing aspect of this. I'm gonna catch up a little bit on the chat here. Zach, and know someone else coming in. I don't know if Lupita's kind of floating in and out. I see somebody else, but Zach says anesthesia is hard to process, and I tried chloroform once with a friend and slowly passed out while we role played.
Chloroform is a completely different animal that you probably don't want to mess with, even if you have a friend there. There's a reason that people use it to kidnap. It's very, very harsh on your mind, harsh on your body. It's not a good option, but I mean, it is the only one that you can really get over the counter. But anesthesia that's why they have specialists in it. I had to talk to the anesthesiologist before I even went for all this surgery shit. So just be very, very careful if you're even, I don't think you're still doing that, but just be very careful with it. That is definitely something that will fuck with your head, and that there's a reason why they don't use it for anesthesia anymore. So
there you go. Then he continues to say, Frodo lost his finger in Mordor, so you came out ahead.
So Zach, since you mentioned that, when Charmed episodes ended and they were no longer playing Charmed, I was watching The Hobbit. That was the movie that I saw that I picked. So I got to watch The Hobbit while I was there too. So it's funny that you mentioned Frodo because I got to see him at the beginning of The Hobbit.
Yeah. Then he says, I'll sleep till noon too after hearing this Odyssey. Yeah. Sometimes I wish our grass was emo so it just cut itself, protect our feet.
Well, next time we'll just stick the tortoises out there to mow it for us.
If we get enough tortoises, they are lawnmowers. You don't have to worry about that as much. But if more garden space we could take up, then there's less mowing space. That's my saying about that. And I know Bonnie would be happy if we expanded the tortoise garden, which is a possibility.
I still need to look up those flowers and see if they're edible or not.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, which some people have done, which I don't know if I would go, but it just concrete out the yard and painting it green. That's what some people do. The people that really hate mowing, it just
it takes away the earthiness, and I don't like that.
Right, and you're
That I
like
could
living
kind of
in the city again
yeah.
with sidewalks. But
The city, I could understand them doing that, especially after we watched that movie the other night.
Oh yeah.
But
Loving,
I would not want to do that for out here.
So we like our actual grass, but I especially having reptiles, I do like actual grass. I will say that just because it can be a food source. To just pave over the whole yard like a parking lot and painting it green. I know it's a way, you wouldn't have to mow again, I guess, but it's just, it's a little extreme.
Yeah.
So I know some people handle it that way, those that hate mowing. As I hate mowing, but I don't know about going that extent with it. Again, I'd much rather shovel snow. That's just me, because I can work snow. I can use as a workout mechanism.
More snow for you.
Yeah, see what I mean?
I hate snow.
And there's not a traumatization aspect with shoveling.
I'm sure there could be, especially
there
when
could
you
be,
slip
especially they call it the heart attack snow for a reason because
my hand-eye coordination sucks as it is.
Yeah.
So I'm that person that slips on ice a lot. So I can't wait until there's ice all over the fucking ground. Let me tell you.
Well, at least this being not even summer technically yet, it'll give you time to heal this up. So then, when you do have your first fall, you can bounce back. Because I could not imagine you right now, especially with a walker, falling on the ice. Oh God, that would be horrible. Luckily, winter before the first snow, at least even if it's predating winter and being December 20th, 21st, seasonally at least, we can get snow in November, and there's time. So there's that as a silver lining. So you can count your days before you fall on your ass.
I think we had snow in October this year. Or last year.
Well, I mean, that's possible. But usually for snow on average, a lot of times is closer to November at the earliest. But the last few years of living here, we haven't seen winter precip closer to late December or January. So who knows? And this last winter, we didn't even have to bring the snowblower out at all.
Keep bragging.
We'd have remember Zach, you were here, we'd have maybe 3 to 5 inches. We had 3 different snowstorms that were at least measuring that amount. And because it would warm up within 3 to 4 days after that, it would just take care of itself. So, I mean, I really shoveled the main walkway to the garage twice. Then the other 2 snow systems, it was just, it melted within 48 hours.
I think part of the reason my leg is starting to act up is it's going to be hitting that 4-hour mark.
Yeah,
soon.
no, we're good here. We'll wrap up. But anyway, so part 3, concluding here. I'm not sure what else I want to add to it. I guess ultimately, me going back then to pick her up, bring her back, which is just literally that's why we're late. And then we started live stream. So that's catching you up to speed right now with what we know. Her discharge papers, which the nurse almost forgot.
We had to turn
around and get them because I was like, that might be important. So we went ahead and got those. She has a walker now. This is the outcome. If I can move this here, kind of do a little. Yeah, so she has that right now. It's not a hard cast. It's a
splint.
Yeah.
So it's got the hard part on the sides right here and underneath my foot. But it's open-ended so that we can hit my toes and push on them to make sure that the blood flow and everything's good. But I have already seen where one of the splints is sticking out of my big toe. But yeah, so right now my leg is getting to the point of kind of getting painful to move around or anything else. So that's part of the reason we are going to be wrapping up here in the next.
And then she has what I always call the old people walker, because that's usually what I used to see, mostly.
Which is why I said we need to.
It's right there.
Cough it out because it's
It's very basic. It still had the tag on it, which, I had to joke about that. But hey.
Yeah, while we were going to Casey's.
Yeah. Serves this purpose. But yes, it's very basic. We can do some customizations to it, make it look very awesome and fantastic. And maybe give it some lighting, like underglow. I don't know. We'll make it trippy.
I don't want to draw more attention to me with that.
I'm just saying. Add a skull on it or something. Or
oh yeah, there's gonna be skulls. There's gonna be some purple probably where the handles are.
Totally. I can see it being purple.
I've got to have the purple in there.
Oh yeah, the purple. So, anyway, so that's where we are at currently, and then the taking care of business kind of thing. The next couple of weeks especially are going to be the most important in terms of watching for blood clots, making sure circulation is still there, keeping it elevated, but yet not having her ass lay down all day. So I'll be good about making sure she
because
is
what
mobile.
Causes the blood clots is constantly laying down. So even at the hospital, there was a point in time where I was tired of laying down. My ass hurt from laying down.
Yeah.
So I got up and I was using the walker. I got up to go pee, and then I started kind of cleaning up around, just cleaning up whatever trash and gathering my stuff because I had already knew I was getting discharged and got dressed and made sure to grab everything that I could.
Because I'm not sure if I'm not a doctor myself, but I do know that from what I hear that keeping it moving, keeping circulation going can prevent not just clots, but aneurysms and all that kind of stuff too. So you don't want to stay in the same position too long. This was a thing where lightheartedness of this, where I was like, does that mean, will they cover of course it would be basic, it wouldn't be gothic, fitting the aesthetics and the look of the mansion, but if they did have a Italianate Edwardian Victorian style chairlift to go up and down the stairs, I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't overuse it to abuse it, but yes, I would be tempted to sit on it to ride it a few times myself.
And mind you, this had been a joke from earlier too, because one of the houses I was looking at, it had one of those lifts.
Yeah.
So it was ultimately a house that was out of my price range, probably because of that lift being on it.
Right. And it's kind of funny because another ironic thing too was that literally she had to get up early for work one day about 3 a.m. or whatever she got up. And just randomly she'd ask me, it's like, where that foot moisturizer cream that I use on mine is at, because hers are getting, I guess, pretty chapped or dry.
But that's the funny thing. It's the other foot, the one that's okay,
it's funny,
that is like that.
Because I was just like, now you have bigger problems. Because I was trying to crack up about that a little bit, because I'm like, you're, in the middle, when I'm still asleep, kind of like half awake, I'm like, well, I guess I can get up out of bed. And she's like, no, don't.
I'm like, don't get up. I was asking so if he wanted to tell me where it was at, I could get it, but
by God, I'll make sure
him to get up.
She knows where it is. But it might be a while before she is able to apply it to that foot. But it's just the whole ironic, things with this. It's just some of it you just have to laugh about, or you would cry.
And mind you, another thing that I did while I was waiting to be discharged and stuff was they gave me this little tote looking thing, which I brought with me because they were going to toss it anyways, that had like different wipes and stuff in it. One for, if I wanted to use that instead of toilet paper, which I opted for toilet paper. I'd rather use toilet paper than have my ass wet. One that's just like a regular, just kind of wiping stuff down and whatnot. I don't know what the hell exactly it was for. It was meant for faces and stuff too. And then they had the bath, kind of sponge bath kind of ones. So when I realized that those were in there, I took the opportunity to give myself kind of a sponge bath, because we went straight from mowing, and I still had grass, like stains on my leg from the grass blowing out of the thing.
That's hot.
Oh my gosh. I felt so fucking gross. Like, I still need to wash my hair. I obviously was not doing that there because my shampoo and everything was here, and they had asked me, do you want to take a shower? I said no. I said I'll do all that when I get home. Like, I did not want to fuck around
she,
with it.
she was wearing grass like it was no one's business. She had her hair just full of different clippings.
And that would be because what he talked about earlier about how I had taken a break from mowing previously. I was so hot and my asthma was acting up to the point where I just laid back in the grass and I was like, I didn't give a fuck. So I had quite literally had grass in my hair. And I'm like going like this and pulling pieces out of my hair while they're looking at my foot. So.
Yeah. So. Anyway, with that, it's kind of basically that's a good in-depth summary of what happened. Few details, like not very many that I can think that we left off. That was actually very detailed. And you got a photo before anyone else. And
yeah,
you
nobody
got
else
kind
has
of
seen that photo.
a hint of what the vlog footage will look like, some of it, before anyone else. So, seen it here first, but, Lord, it's been
a long.
Yeah. I'm ready
48
to.
hours.
We'd ordered some pizza tonight. We have it in there.
It's probably cold now.
Yeah, well, we were gonna heat up anyway because it took a while to get home from there. But have that. Still
Honestly,
gonna do
I'm
that.
probably not gonna warm mine up. I'm just gonna eat it because I'm hungry.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting hungry.
Side note: the hospital, fantastic staff and everything else.
That's what I was gonna say. Again, I'm not gonna diss Macomb Hospital. It's just I know how those smaller town and county hospitals can go. But A++ to Springfield.
Even
Nothing.
their food, their hospital menu food was not bad. Like, I actually enjoyed. Like, I got this 7-spice chicken thing like shortly before I left, and it was even good. And they gave me salt and pepper and stuff like that, so I could add it to my mashed potatoes because they make them plain with no seasonings or anything in it. But like this morning, they gave me scrambled eggs and bacon and some and a bagel. I made myself like a bacon, egg, and cheese bagel thing like they have at McDonald's, except for I had no cheese. But I kind of made myself a bagel sandwich. It was great.
So yeah, like I said, Springfield, they were good. They seemed really to care for her, which is great. Even when we had to depart and they had to take her away surgery, and then I had to go to one of the various waiting rooms. They were just like, we'll take good care of her. I mean, they were trying to reassure me. I don't know how much I've worried, like how much I reeked of that, but I mean, they definitely, of course, it's what they do. But they were telling me that take care of her. We'll update you, kind of thing, to try to reassure me.
Mind you, that we both kind of fibbed to them, and I told them he was my boyfriend, so that I
said I was family.
I knew they would let him in, because I don't know about you guys, but I've had experiences where if you're not family, they don't let you back there. If you are not immediately connected to the person, like, we're really good friends, we're roommates, but I doubt that they would have really let him in, knowing just that little bit.
But that part of it, I just have issues with, because so many people that aren't as close to their family, or family that don't give a shit, and this is common in the alt community especially, but in any, but, you know, it just, imagining that she was just there alone if they turned me away,
That's part of the reason why I made that choice, because I didn't want you to not have any information and kind of be left in the dark and then not being able to see you, because I needed that. It would have made this whole thing a lot worse on both of our ends. So
yeah, Zach's out of state. I would have, if it wasn't
and
me,
my entire
there would have been nobody. No one, not a familiar face that you would have known.
Yeah.
You would have been in this alone.
Which is why you're also my emergency contact on there. So
now I am, yeah.
So they asked me if it was okay to give you information and stuff. You and my dad were on that. My mom was on it too, but I don't know if they ever really called her. I know they did you, and I'm fairly certain they did my dad, because my dad was giving my mom information. But
all right, we'll wrap up here. But yeah, so that's the story. we're sticking to it. I mean, that's what happened. So, is it
Hopefully
interesting
this is
seeing
the last time I have to explain all of this.
Right. Hopefully, we won't have to have another extra long and late live stream like this that goes over my perspective versus her perspective or multiple people's perspective. If it's Zach getting hurt or whoever, none of that. Hopefully, we'll have to have anytime soon. But it is interesting rewalking it through, especially while it's so fresh. If at any time this will act like a yearbook, or maybe it'll come back. I don't know.
And that was part of the reason, again, that I decided I did want to go ahead and do a vlog for it. Was I may not be thrilled about the situation, but I'd rather have it documented and stuff rather than wishing I had documented it later down the road and not having anything from it.
Kind of like I was with my first camcorder in high school. There's so many things that I could have done, but I wasn't quite proficient. Now I'm like always constantly just automatically thinking this should be documented. Some of it just for personal sake and some of it for just share with you guys. It's natural to me anymore. It really is. It's like even me walking around the hospital aimlessly trying to, I don't know, being alone. I'm like, the quiet halls here, this is what I'm experiencing right here. And you hear that boop, boop.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that all I did was took a picture of my foot.
Yeah.
Rather than actually take a video.
Video of it, and then you can see the Tarantino little goop, goop with the blood. I'm kind of glad you didn't.
I'm
That would have. I don't know. From a YouTube perspective, I might have had to censor that anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I would have appreciated myself for that. I probably would have taken a screenshot of something in it and deleted the video.
Yeah.
So.
Superimposed Bonnie over it, going like humping
Oh my
his
gosh,
shoe.
I'm gonna have fun trying to get up there to see them.
I know, Ma's gonna be, because I hadn't seen you all day yesterday, so it's like, oh.
Yes, they did. I went up and saw them yesterday before I went outside to mow.
Okay.
Wasn't that yesterday? Because I told you about Dillinger
I thought
taking
that was,
his sweet ass time.
I don't know.
No,
I thought
that
it
was the night before because my food was.
I thought it was before that, yeah.
Yeah, it was the night before. So.
It was the calm before the storm on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
It's weird to think today's only Friday.
Technically Saturday now, but yeah. Let's see here. I'll read the last things here. Zach says, have a lawn of shamrocks and clovers. Yeah. Well, a few of them are out there. Somebody identified some 4-leaf clovers that we have, so that's always good, I guess. Zach says, no snow, just Trevid noise. I understand. And then he says, goth it out. So meaning that.
Don't worry. Once it's all gothed out, you'll get it. You'll see a picture of it because one of us will end up sharing it.
Mm-hmm. And she has the kind of gauze cloth type wrapping right now. It's kind of like the mummy, but it's not hardened like a boot would say. So it's not going to be one of those that's going to be signed, probably. It's not, because I've seen those before where people have a cast on and it's like signed and signed and signed and signed in his shoulder and drawn.
Well, the only person who would be here to do any of that would be you and me.
Yeah. Well, I could teach Bonnie how to write.
Good luck with that.
Bonnie would just climb on it.
No, Bonnie, you'd have to strap a marker to her or to his back and have him twerk and then have his own little line.
Yeah, just zigzag, yeah. That'd be hilarious. Alright, everybody, we'll wrap up here. That's the long story here. A long live stream.
Yeah, that's the long story,
it's actually
long version.
Longer
versus...
than I initially thought we were going to do it. But the full thing's out there. I felt it was kind of needed to, because we're still going to be after the fact. People lag and they find out things later on, and then they still ask you, what happened? Oh my God. I dealt with that with suicide with Angela. And past a certain point, then it hampered my healing. Because then it was like, bring it up again. Relive it again. And you're already mentally somewhere else.
We need to come up with a really cool cover story for this, by the way. Because if anybody else asks, especially when we're at Walmart or something, I need a very good cover story for it. Because I want something that they're not going to question any further.
Versus, we were joking about it with even the medical staff. There, one of the
Yeah,
scenarios was like, well, I was trying to make her laugh too. I was like, well, why don't you just say, it's like shark attack on it, but then it was one of the
Jaws got you.
Jaws got you, but then it's one of the stories like you should have seen the other guy. You think this is bad? Jaws, you should have seen Jaws. Even the one of them was like kind of chuckling about
the medevac people.
Yeah, as they're prepping her to leave.
This like, whatever story you come up with, we'll go with it.
Yeah, this was in the Macomb before she went to Springfield. But yeah, so thinking definitely chime in, comment below if you want, give us ideas of what we could say that makes it a unique story, how you want to say this happened in a way, and
I really
make it
want to
fun,
say that
make
I
it,
was at a concert and like crowd surfing and somebody decided to drop me forward and I ended up smashing my foot or something.
That, and if I truly had one of the at least top 2 biggest land tortoises, the Aldabra and the Galapagos, I could say that her foot just got placed underneath the plastron of one of the tortoises that could weigh easily 150
I'll just
pounds.
say it ran over my foot.
And that the tortoise just fell down on it, crushing it. That would be like, oh, wow, instead of a lawnmower thing. But yeah.
I'll just say you ran over it.
Yeah, I ran over it. We had a spading accident.
You were trying to kill a snake and got my foot instead.
Oh, God. That would have been my mom trying to kill a snake. Jeez.
Oh, your mom. I don't remember that.
With me, it would have been the root thing. I'm having flashbacks of 2 days before where I'm attacking that root in the tortoise garden. We're trying to clear that out. And it's like, foot got under that, but luckily, no. That didn't happen.
And his mom saw the posts on Facebook about me and made sure to check in on me, make sure I'm good, and then we called her on the way home.
That's part of why we were delayed, because I would have been here on 9:45, but she was still on the phone, and then I politely had to say, okay, well, we're home, which we were, and I had to truly focus, drop the call to be able to
get
her in, because we're used to parking in the garage, and they're having her just walk out. Well, in this instance, and probably for the next short-term foreseeable future, be pulling in anytime she's riding with me.
Which will be anytime I have to drive, because I can't drive right now.
Right.
They told me that short distances is okay, but like
so you could go to Macomb if you wanted to.
Short distance, like 5 minute, 10 minute.
Oh,
so, yeah.
See, this is new to me. I didn't know.
So like I can't even go to Macomb by myself,
okay.
Because they said if I were to get in an accident or something, I could obliterate my foot and then it'd be on me, ultimately. And so, yeah, it's especially seeing how my car is still fucked right now. I wouldn't be driving anywhere anyways.
Chaperone. So I'm driving you everywhere, basically, until
I guess it's a really good thing that the tortoise guy fell through, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would have been changed, ultimately. Long story short, there was a box turtle that someone was trying to get rehomed on Craigslist, but somebody else that could get to him sooner was able to, so wish him the best with that. But anyway, so let's see here. Zach says, don't watch Honey, I Shrunk the Kids tonight. You might have nightmares. Oh, I've seen that before. It's been a long time.
I actually like Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves better than I do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
There you go. But yeah, no, I haven't seen either of them for
it's been years.
It's been a while.
Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, and then the one where the baby gets blown up. Those are my 2 favorites.
So, Zach, in terms of like a sit down where it's all 3 of us, because I know sometimes you want to be informed, like when it's just a 2-person or a 1-person thing or whatever. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves, that kind of stuff. That could be all 3 of us. So whenever we return to Emo Mansion and we have a movie night, that's definitely those ones I can tolerate. Because again, I have not seen them for a long time. It's been forever. So, all right, we're gonna wrap up here. And so thanks for tuning in. We'll tend to this here. The pain level, I'm assuming, is going up. So we'll end this here. So, all right, peace. Rock on.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.